Welcome to Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup. I'm your host, Jason Bland, and tonight we have a wonderful guest I'm truly honored to have on. His name is Joe McQuillen. It's the first time we've had him on the show. He's the author of 2 books. His first book was My Search for Christopher on the Other Side, and his other book, new, just came out recently, is We're Not Done Yet, Pop, My Lessons from the Other Side. He lost his son, Christopher, January 3rd of 2016, and he's been on a journey of connecting with him on the other side. And I think I have this show and the next 2 really devoted to how you can communicate with your loved ones, and even later, I think Rob Guttrow in a few weeks about connecting with your spirits on the other side, because it's the holiday season, and this is when we miss our loved ones and even our pets that have passed on. This is when it touches us the most. It's touching me now just with my pets, this year. As we head into the holiday season. And I really hope if you are missing a loved one, or especially if you've lost a child, and I know some of my listeners have lost children, tonight's show helps you. Joe is a wonderful man. He's written 2 wonderful books on this subject, and we say it on this show all the time. Our loved ones are always with us. They never leave us. They're there with you right now. In your moments when you feel the worst, sometimes they're there with you. And that's why I do this show. I think this is one of the most important shows I might do this year. Is tonight's show with guest Joe McQuillen. Now, we got a lot in the World Wide Web of weird as well, and we will open up the phone lines later in the show for you to call in, share your stories, your experiences. And I know this is going to be a tough one. It's a tough one for me. As a father, I can't imagine a worse nightmare than losing my children. I'm a worrywart, and I'm very protective of my children, as many parents, of course, are. And it's been hard, actually, reading his book. I haven't read the first book, but I've been reading We're Not Done Yet, Pop. It's been hard for me, not because it's a bad book, it's a great book, but it's been hard because I'm kind of facing my worst nightmare. And Joe is such a wonderful individual and a wonderful writer. I really hope tonight his interview helps anyone out there, just even if it helps one person who's having a tough time this holiday season, missing their loved ones. Also, I know we have probably some new listeners tonight. Josh Turner from Paranormal Roundtable had posted the first part of our pretty much like 3-part interview. And I've got a lot of great rave reviews of the interview. Josh is awesome. If you haven't heard of Paranormal Roundtable, I don't know how. It's a great show. And you can find that episode up now. Is what I think is Followed by Shadows or Chased by Shadows, he called, or something like that. His interview with me, and it'll have the next, I think, 2 parts coming out in the following weeks. And I know I've gotten a lot of new subscribers, so welcome to the show. We got a lot to get to, so let's go ahead and get rolling on into it. Welcome to another night of Paranormal Soup. As I said before, I'm your host, Jason Bland. Tonight's guest, Joe McQuillen, author of My Search for Christopher on the Other Side. And we're not done yet, Pop. My Lessons from the Other Side will join us after the World Wide Web of Weird tonight after our first commercial break. And like I said, we will open up the phone lines later in the show for you guys to share. If you've had I was just telling this to some friends online that I was playing Squadrons with, if they're watching tonight. Video game I play, whatever. They were asking me about the paranormal and all that, and I said the most common experience people have in the paranormal is not a haunted house or Bigfoot or any of those things. It's usually losing a loved one and that connection you have after they've passed and experience. And those are my favorite stories. And if you have one, I'd love to hear it tonight. We'll open up the phone lines. You call in later with our guest, Joe McQuillen. Joining me, as always, is my beautiful co-host, Jamie D. How you doing tonight, Jamie?
Doing great, thank you.
Yeah, we had Joe on for sound check. He seems like a wonderful person. I can't wait to do this interview. Jamie, I know you talking about your father during the holiday season. It's tough when you lose someone. This time of year, this is when you start to think and miss them the most. And everybody here tonight, we're going to share. We can share our experiences, even pets. Like I said, I have Rob Guttrow. I always butcher his name. Later in a couple weeks on about spirits of your pets on the other side. I lost Bella in Asia, and it's getting to me this holiday season, not having them there. I'm getting a little choked up even trying to talk about it.
So many memories and reminders just pop up.
Yeah. And also from St. Augustine, Florida, Rob Autry himself. How you doing tonight, Rob?
I'm doing pretty good, thank you.
Awesome. Like I said, we got a lot of weird to get to in the World Wide Web of Weird, so let's go ahead and roll into the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight on the World Wide Web of Weird, I thought we should just start out with this since we were talking about it quite a bit last week with Paul Blake Smith, author of the Eisenhower UFO Encounters book. We had a great interview with that. About the new UFO Pentagon office. Well, this article from Unexplained Mysteries talks about concerns raised over Pentagon's new UFO office by many, myself included. For those listening on the Paranormal Radio Network on Talkstream Live or the Paranormal Radio app, we are a webcast. We stream live out to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. But if you want to listen, that's fine. We do share photos and videos, but I try to narrate as best as possible. You can always go back for seconds and watch the show later if you want. But yes, we're going to start out with this story here. I don't know why my buttons are acting slow tonight. It's kind of freaking me out here. It's acting slow. I know they've done some updates on StreamYard, but it's making me a bit nervous, StreamYard. I'm hitting buttons and it's not doing very quick here. All right, so concerns raised over Pentagon's new UFO office. Former officials maintain that the new office will compromise efforts to establish full transparency on the subject. Yeah, right. Last month, the U.S. Department of Defense announced the Airborne Object Identification and Management Synchronization Group, or AOIMSG, a new UFO investigation office that will serve as a successor to U.S. Navy's Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force. According to an official press release, the AOIMSG will synchronize efforts across departments in the broader U.S. government to direct and identify and attribute objects of interest in special U.S. airspace and to assess and mitigate any associated threats to safety of flight and national security. Not everyone is enthusiastic about the news, however, including Luis Elizondo, who previously headed up a unit that was responsible for assessing military UFO reports. His concern relates to how the new UFO office could compromise Senator Kirsten Gillibrand's proposed amendment to the 2022 National Defense Authorization Act, which aims to establish full transparency on the subject on UFOs and to remove all secrecy surrounding this phenomenon. Yeah, right. If we want 70 more years of secrecy on this topic, then the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security is the perfect place to put it, said Elizondo. They've had 4 years so far, and we've had little in a way of efforts serving the public interest. Elizondo is not alone in his concern. Christopher Mellon, who ran the equivalent unit during the Clinton and Bush administration, does not believe that the new UFO office will have the funding, line authority, contracting command, or technical capabilities to investigate the UFOs effectively. The inability of the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security to engage effectively on the UFO issue is why so little has changed or been accomplished since 2004. Given the potential for such issues, it's unclear exactly how things will progress under the new office and whether Gillibrand's call for greater transparency will actually be enacted at all. Like I said, I feel like this is really just Project Blue Book 2.0. It's just, like, oh, we're looking into it. Our top men or women, and nothing.
We'll circle back on that with you.
Yeah, we'll circle back. Speaking of that, what I always say is one place I don't want to see a UFO. I'd be happy to see a UFO hovering up in the sky. The one thing I don't want to see is if I'm on an airplane, it flying by. One of my all-time favorite YouTube channels on the subject of the paranormal is Hidden Underbelly. Has this good one here of a UFO. So definitely go to Hidden Underbelly and check this out. A UFO flying outside a airplane passenger's window. Curious piece of footage captured by a puzzled airline passenger en route to Rahadid appears, and this is from Coast to Coast AM, appears to show a disc-shaped UFO hovering in the sky. The strange scene was reportedly filmed last month by, I'm sorry if I butcher this, Niraj Singh, as he was in the middle of a flight from India to Saudi Arabia. While looking out his window, he spotted something very strange alongside the plane he proceeded to film the oddity with his cell phone. Admittedly difficult to discern video, a particular white dot can be seen off the distance. Now, Hidden Underbelly zooms in on it, and then I zoom in on it even more, and this looks like a disc. This looks like a disc to me, and I don't think this is shenanigans or CGI of any kind. I think this is a real deal. Go ahead and play this video real quick.
We had a weather balloon in the area.
Yeah, no way. So this I think is Hidden Underbelly zoom in of it. As the passenger filmed it on his cell phone. The original footage is really hard. You just see a white dot. Now, Hidden Underbelly zooms in on it. And then I zoom in on it even more and just give it more grainy quality. But you can see this thing's like a disc. And like I said, this is the last place I want to see a UFO. Is in a plane. I don't want to see it in a plane. I'm already nervous enough on a plane. Yeah, that's more like it. You can't even tell there. Here's my zoom in on it. I did a little couple cuts to try to get as best of it I can. Look, that is full-fledged disc. I don't think that's a plane. I mean, it could be. It could be just from the green quality, but it looks like a disc.
I don't think it's a blimp either.
No.
Mm-mm. Yeah,
but go check that out. Hidden Underbelly 2.0. It's a great channel.
Yeah, that's pretty trippy looking.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I'm going to be like William Shatner in Twilight Zone.
There's
looking at it's a man on the way. There's a UFO out there too. Like I said, I'm already nervous enough on an airplane. Speaking of that, then we got China. We've been talking about this for last year about China's rover on the moon. What's on the moon? I have my theories about aliens and the moon being like a Death Star. I really do think the moon is like an artificial thing up there. I found this really interesting. Got this again from Unexplained Mysteries. Love the short articles here. A rover to investigate mystery cube-shaped object on the moon. And you can barely see it here in this picture. You can look at this Unexplained Mysteries. But this was shot by China's Yuda-2 rover. It set sights on a very strange object spotted far off in the distance. There have been a lot of claims about the anomalous object on the lunar surface over the years. But this one, which was captured on the camera by China's Yuda-2 rover, if I'm saying that right, appears to be the real deal. Exhibiting a distinct cube-like shape that stands out on the horizon against the blackness of space, this mysterious object has attracted the attention of Chinese scientists who have since decided to send the rover on over, all the way over to investigate exactly what it is. The fact is that it's situated on a hidden far side of the moon, only serves to heighten the intrigue. The photograph has already succeeded in piquing the curiosity of social media users who have been speculating over what the mysterious object could be. While their suggestions have ranged from extraterrestrial probe to a monolith straight out of 2001 Space Odyssey, it is also possible that the cube, in fact, is nothing more than a common boulder. I think it's something. Yeah, I don't like China or their government, but hey, go check it out because you know our government has been telling us the truth about the moon for a long time. One way or the other, things should become clearer as the rover approaches its target. Will it? I don't trust China, so they'll go, oh, nothing to see.
Well, it's
They'll
just
go check it out, and then, yeah.
an organic rock shape.
Yeah. Maybe that's why we're so ready to go back to the moon.
Organic rock shape that shoots missiles.
Yeah, or give, monkeys like super intelligence or evolve like 2001 Space Odyssey. I mean, Stanley Kubrick and Arthur C. Clarke might have been onto something here.
I think they knew something.
Yeah. Well, I still get that people are like Stanley Kubrick helped fake the moon landings and all that. I don't know. I think some moon landings stuff was fake later on. I do think Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, and Buzz Aldrin went to the moon, saw alien stuff, and were never allowed to talk about it. That's a whole other discussion for another night. All right, let's move on. All right. I thought this was a really cool story from a mayor. Rigglesville mayor, still haunted by Bigfoot encounter. Now, this happened to him in like 1984, I believe. Yeah, 1984. Mayor Greg Stokes experienced something while camping in 1984 that would stay with him for the rest of his days. And I think this is so awesome that people, even a mayor, back in the day, a mayor of a town wouldn't come out and say, I saw Bigfoot. That's politically, even a small town, kill your career. But this guy feels pretty comfortable to do it, and I think his story is really interesting. It had started out, and this is from Unexplained Mysteries, it started out an idyllic camping trip with his girlfriend in Pike County, Pennsylvania. Yet what happened that night, July 1984, would lead him on a search for the truth that continues to even this day. Things had started out fine with Stokes setting up the tent and starting a campfire. About 9:45, when it was good and dark, something walked up on our campsite, he recalled. It was definitely something on 2 feet, and I could hear it snapping sticks as it walked. Terrified, he gripped his knife and hatchet as the intruder came to stop just outside the tent. The animal let out a scream that was just most terrifying thing you can imagine, said Stokes. The creature, this thing, was so close to our tent that I could hear its lips pop open when it started to scream. It had a terrible, deep, guttural tone, but also this high-pitched tone, and the scream went on for 20 or 25 seconds. I didn't think then, and I don't think now, that a human being is capable of making that sound. This scream was definitely territorial, and it was definitely directed at us. It shook my body so hard I couldn't see the inside of the tent. It was like looking through shimmering water. The sound went all the way through me. If you stand in front of a big Boss amplifier at a concert, that's what it's like. Me and Rob know what that's like. Stokes would go on to spend the next 37 years attempting to find out answers what he encountered in the night. I didn't know what I heard, he said, but I knew what I did hear, and any animal found it wasn't, or I knew what I didn't hear, any animal found in North America. And the guy's very familiar. There's more to this. There's a link on Unexplained Mysteries to Bucks County Courier-Times that originally had this article. It's much longer. He goes in more depth of the experience. I use this for shortness of the show, but I think it's so awesome that more people can come out and talk about this, especially somebody who is in a political office. I mean, this stuff not long ago would ruin somebody's career. I found that awesome. This guy felt he could come out and talk about this.
Yeah.
All right.
And to hear it, to hear it, just the story of it is one thing, but when you're actually in a tent in the woods and there's something on the other side of some material that's, micro thin.
Yeah, all it has to take is watching Friday the 13th with Jason Voorhees.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that scene where he kills somebody in their tent and sleeping bag, bashes them up against a tree? You're not, the tent isn't doing, not going to protect you.
Going to protect you.
Yeah. Yeah, I would piss myself.
To whatever's out there.
I will not lie. If I was him in that situation, I would piss myself.
Yeah, probably so.
I'd be done in the tent for the night, and I'd be out of there. But he slept. I read the whole article. They stayed the rest, and I don't know how they did that. But probably mine and I had a choice. It's hard to pack up and leave in the middle of the night, but man. All right, so moving on. All right, now this one I'm probably going to get some criticism for. I might need some money now coming up in the future if I don't have a job. And I thought about doing this, and people are like, "Don't do it! Don't do it!" But we had a company I don't know how long ago say they were trying to get somebody's face for a robot or AI or something like that. Well, we got another company. Firm will pay you $280,000 to use your face on a robot. Now, people got to understand something with me. I'm a big sci-fi geek, and having my face on a robot is kind of like a childhood dream. Especially a bunch of them. And I've mentioned this before. The last firm that tried that offered money for this would like, hey, if robots are going to take over the end of the world, hey, I want to have a familiar face. Everybody wanted an army of identical robot counterparts and even get paid for privilege. Now you can. Promobot, which described itself as a producer of autonomous service robots for businesses, is certainly no stranger to the field of robotics, having previously featured in the news with its limited through impressive IR-77 robot, which looks something out of a sci-fi movie from the 1980s. You can see here, he looks kind of real there. As well as its more realistic Alex robot, which even served as a news anchor on Russian TV channel. I hear they're firing news anchors recently. They might need them. Now the company is looking to take things one step further by creating an ultra-realistic robot that will be used to interact with customers in hotels, airports, shopping centers, and countries across the world. Now, of course, do I have that clip? You know what I always play when this happens, when we talk about this? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I've been all my audio stuff messed up, and yes, I need this.
They took our job. They took our job.
Yeah. Like I said, what are they doing? They're going to replace us all with robots. Yep. But see, if I get $280,000, sell my face to the robot, then they'll just think I'm one of them. And if they take over the world, I can just blend in. With my $280,000
strategy plan for this.
But my point about this article is not so much about that. It is the fact that we are replaceable in the eyes of the elites in these companies. They want to replace us with robots. They don't care about you or your life or whatever. They want to replace us with robots.
Don't have to pay them. Don't have to feed them.
Yeah. Don't have to vaccinate
them. They don't take breaks.
Yeah.
They don't talk back.
Yeah. Until when they do. Yet, exactly.
But like I said, if I saw my face and there's a bunch of AI Terminators that look like me out there, I can just blend in. The rest of you be screwed. All right, we got to move on, though. I'm not saying anybody should go sell their face for that. I find it uncomfortable that a company could own the rights to your face. That's where I wonder the legality of it. All right, let's move on. This is even more scarier. Just to leave you with this great feeling of my own personal anxiety and dread of the future. Bizarre creatures are world's first self-replicating living robot, scientists say. And I can't read this whole article. It's from sciencealert.com. We're going to run out of time. It's from 30th of November. Scientists have engineered what they say are the first self-replicating robots ever made from living cells. God, jeez. At first, these freaky-looking Xenobots might seem notable for their superficial resemblance to Pac-Man, but their likeness to the video game character is probably the least strange thing about them. These unusual robotic creatures are a spin-off of what some researchers unveiled last year when they presented the world's first robot constructed out of living cells. We covered that. In this case, stem cells taken from embryonic frogs. Yay, frog reproducing robotics. What would Alice Jones say is like to the frogs again now. These are novel living machines, computer scientist and robotic Joshua Bongard from the University of Vermont explained at the time. They are neither a traditional robot nor a known species of animal. It's a new class of artifact, a living programmable organism. Oh, just wonderful. Now Bonsgard and his collaborators have taken the next step, giving the Xenobots the ability to self-replicate and spawn new versions of themselves all on their own. Doesn't the future look so great? Anybody ask, is this a good idea? Might be a bad idea. Making them self-replicating. They look like Pac-Man. What was the gray goo theory? Like nanobots. So these things are living.
We're going to bring on our own extinction.
Yeah. It's like none of these scientists have ever watched a future sci-fi movie where they cover a lot of this. It's a warning, not an idea.
Exactly.
Yeah, I keep saying this. It's a warning. These sci-fi movies are warnings about not doing these
blueprints.
Things. Yeah, not blueprints. Like China naming their artificial intelligence system Skynet. They did that. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Gotta love it. Gotta like science has done this so well. I mean, I'm all about science. I am. But was it Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park tries to warn them? Yeah. I'm like Jeff Goldblum over here, trying to warn them. Nobody's listening. Do I need the cool sunglasses? They didn't listen to Jeff Goldblum either. But yeah, I'm really scared for the future. So I want to leave you off with the last article just to make you laugh a little bit at somebody else's expense. Just, after I make you feel full of dread here. Or did I not? There it is. Man ends up in hospital with World War II anti-tank shell stuck up his rectum. Yes, you heard that right. Accidents can and do happen, and that much at least is fair enough, but it's not every day that you hear about a bomb disposal expert being called out to deal with a man with a shell stuck in his rectum. Like I said, laugh at somebody else's expense here. Take our minds off our very fearful future. Bizarre series of events began when an anonymous individual was taken to the Gloucestershire Royal Hospital in England. Yeah, I'm sure I butchered that. After failing to extract the bomb on his own. According to reports, the man owned World War II era shells and had fallen on it. How many proctologists have heard that excuse?
Yeah,
I fell on it. Aunt Jemima was just sitting there and I fell. No, the guy said he found the shell when he was having a clear out of his stuff, an unnamed source told The Zone. He said he put it on the floor, then he slipped and fell on it, and it went up his you-know-what. Concerned about the potential for an unexploded ordnance to go off, the hospital staff had asked the bomb squad to attend the scene and make sure that shell didn't pose a threat. Fortunately, it turned out that it was not dangerous, and medics were able to remove it successfully. Imagine the bomb squad people.
Yeah.
That was like, well, there's a first for everything, or maybe it isn't the first, but I had a friend's mom was a proctologist. She told me all kinds of stuff that they would have to remove from people, but I've never heard a bomb. She told me all kinds of stories, but she didn't have a bomb one. That is a new one.
But
that is it.
Just say those things aren't they're not like pocket size.
Yeah, I don't know what this is. Like how big? Like how do you? Like, was he naked while he's going through his stuff?
I was gonna say.
I mean, obviously he had to be naked to actually fall for it to penetrate and go up there.
There's more story.
Yeah, there's definitely more to the story, but we don't need to know more of the story. I think we know enough. But that's it for the World Wide Web of Weird. Our guest tonight is Joe McQuillen, author of My Search for Christopher on the Other Side. And his newest book is We're Not Done Yet, Pop, My Lessons from the Other Side. Like I said, this show and the next couple shows, we're really going to be touching upon our how to make contact with our loved ones on the other side. Because I know during this holiday season, this is the toughest time when we think about our loved ones, especially if you've lost a child. I know some of you in my audience have. And we will open up the phone lines later in the show to ask your questions or share your experiences. I really want to hear tonight. Like I said, I think most of the paranormal stories I hear from people, 90% of them are an experience of a loved one reaching out to them after their passing. And those are my favorite stories to hear. So we'll be back after a short commercial break with our guest, Joe McQuillen.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
of the second kind, physical evidence of a UFO. Close encounters of the third kind, contact. From Steven Spielberg, the director of Jaws, comes one of the most ambitious and unusual films ever made. And what you will see has never been seen before. It's a cosmic mystery crossing what many scientists believe will be the next threshold of human experience. It is called Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It begins in an Indiana town and leads to one inescapable conclusion. We are not alone. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Certificate A. Now showing at the Odeon, Leicester Square.
The international chart-topping Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest has been described as terrifyingly real, a must-read, shocking and chilling brilliance, genuinely worrying, utterly frightening. Don't read before bed. Described as one of the spookiest writers out there, best-selling author G.L. Davies presents Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest, the true paranormal account that is shocking the world. Dare you enter? Dare you read? Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, and wherever books are sold. Pray you never have to live there.
This is the sound of a space clock aboard a U.S. satellite 180 miles above the Earth. No one winds up this timepiece. It's powered by a tiny battery, a battery that delivers power for years without replacement. Now the same type of battery, the Duracell battery, can bring new reliability and long life to your battery-operated equipment. Radios, cameras, toys, all run far longer. Duracell batteries, the long-distance power cells, outlast any ordinary battery. The same type of battery that keeps space clocks running for years can bring long life to anything powered by batteries. Dura, as in durable. Cell, as in power cell. The Duracell battery, made by Mallory.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Switch to DCS ranging.
240, nominal to profile.
We're in the pipe, 5 by 5.
Tonight on Paranormal Soup, our guest is Joe McQuillen. Joe McQuillen is married and a father of three children, one on the other side. Joe is the youngest of 10 children from an Irish Catholic family. Although Joe has had 2 successful careers, he has had at heart a blue-collar kid from Buffalo, New York. Starting out as a salesman, he spent 25 years in the automobile business and worked his way up to executive manager and partner in a number of successful Chicago dealerships. After selling out in 2019, Joe began a successful career as a mortgage broker. Among his many charitable associations, Joe sits on the board of the Balance Ranch Academy, a boarding school dedicated to helping troubled teens with addiction. Following the loss of his son, he began running a charity golf outing to benefit both Balance Ranch and Penguin Players, a theater troupe of disabled young adults. Joe McQuillen is many years sober and a member of AA, a fact that has, in his words, helped me get close to God and to carry me through the dark times after my boys' crossing. His journey has led him both to speak to teens with addiction and parents who have lost children and write his books. Joe is determined to turn his heartbreak into a narrative that will bring comfort and hope to all those hearing his message. In this heartfelt healing book, Joe McQuillen serves as an outstanding example of how one can establish an ongoing relationship with loved ones who have passed. He not only models total commitment to learning about his son's new state of being, he teaches what he has learned in his often funny, often poignant journey of discovery. Following Joe's lead in his book will show you how to move forward with your loved ones in spirit. Susan Geisman, author of Messages of Hope and Still Right Here. I have been reading his second of the 2 books, We're Not Done Yet, Pop, My Lessons from the Other Side, and I really got to get, Joe said he's going to send it to me, his first book, My Search for Christopher on the Other Side. I've talked on the show as a father. It is my worst fear is losing my children. I've seen what it does to people. There's no words to say or help somebody in that time of grief, and it never goes away, that heartbreak. And I know I have listeners in the show who've called in and shared their experiences of losing their loved ones and their connection with their loved ones on the other side. So this is what this holiday season here, the next few shows, we are going to be covering a lot on connecting with your loved ones on the other side, and even with your pets on the other side. I'm missing my 2 girls, Bella and Asia, because it's this time of year when we all think, and it hits us the hardest. And I think this will be one of the most important shows I do this year. So it's an honor to have our guest Joe McQuillen on. So let's go ahead and get right on into it. All right, we should have our guest. We do, and I want to give a shout out here. Yes, we do have Super Chat where you can make donations. Thank you to my old grade school pal Russ there for the $50 donation. That is greatly appreciated. You can donate on Super Chat, and we are on Patreon, $2 a month. Look us up, Jason Bland, Paranormal Soup. But thank you, Russ. That helps out big time. All right, let's bring our guest on, Joe. Are you there with us, Joe?
Hey, Jason. Thanks for the kind introduction. I sure am.
Just so everybody knows, I had a little trouble tonight. The StreamYard's had some updates, and it's moving slow with my button pressing here. So if I have any issues, hopefully no technical difficulties. But welcome to the show, Joe.
I'm almost 60. I'm over 65, and it's 10:30, so I'm moving slow myself. So we're on the same page, you and me.
So, like I said, I've started reading We're Not Done Yet, Pop, and I'm like, I got to get the first book. Now, I don't think people have to get the first book right. But I feel like I really want to read the first book because it seems like this one's like more on the experiences later on and that, but the first book really covers the journey.
Correct. That's exactly right. The first book is the first 2 years of the journey, and believe me, take a look at me. I got a brush cut. I got a broken nose. I don't look like a guy that would light sage and have candles around and
nothing that there's wrong with that.
No, and align my chakras, but that's exactly what I do.
That's awesome.
Because I want the advantages of being able to connect with my kid on the other side.
So I don't know where you want to start with this. To take people kind of into this journey at the beginning of this.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to imagine even talking about this at any point. For me, like I said, as a father, it's my worst fear. When I was 5 years old, I was in kindergarten. A neighbor, childhood friend of mine died in a car accident, and it kind of scarred me for life watching what her parents went through. They never changed her room the whole time I saw them there. They left her bike outside right where it was. It tore them apart. And for a long time in my life, I was like, I never want to have children because I actually feared having a kid and then losing a kid and seeing what they went through. So I think it's incredible that you sharing this, your experience, and trying to help others.
Thanks, Jason. A couple things. There's one, there was a movie a few years back, even before Christopher crossed over in 2016, called Manchester by the Sea, and a woman lost a number of her children in a fire, and she said, "My heart was broken; it'll always be broken." And that's the facts. Anybody who said that time heals all wounds hasn't lost a kid. We acquire tools, we learn how to cope. But parents who've lost kids generally go through life with a piece of their heart broken, and it's not going to be healed until we make that transition and we're united again. And the first 2 years, the first book is really the first 2 years of this journey that I walked into abysmally ignorant of all of it, but I wanted to play catch up real fast, So in 2016, January 2016, my son was home from college, and and a dozen of he and a dozen friends were going up to a lake house in Wisconsin. I'm on the North Shore of Chicago, so about an hour and a half north to Wisconsin. Just before the last weekend, before winter break ended, they were all going to go back to school. So they were going to go up there, kick up their heels a little bit, raise a little hell, shoot a little pool, crash at the lake house, and come back on Sunday and all leave for school the next day. So my son went up there, and I grew up in Buffalo, New York, we were kind of waiting for the Bills game to come on, and I was waiting for Chris to come home so he and his little brother and I could watch the game together. And I got a text that said, "Mr. McHugh, Chris and three of his friends are missing." And so, I jumped in the Jeep, grabbed my Labrador, who's by the front door right here, and started heading up to Wisconsin. Halfway up, I got a call from the uncle who lived a few doors down that said it was no longer a search but a recovery. That all four boys had drowned, and what happened is they all got back from the pub, and the party continued, and four of them went outside, saw a boathouse. Four boys, jumped in a 3-man canoe, layered clothing, partially frozen lake. It's kind of a perfect storm. Untied Timberland boots, which plays into the story. Paddled out, none of them made it back. I actually, when I left, I actually expected to get up there and find him in a boathouse or in another cabin with a co-ed, or sleeping on a couch at somebody else's house. I did not anticipate what happened. When I got up to the house, you go into a little bit of shock, as any parent will tell you. I got up to the house and I walked in the door, and I can envision at this moment, walking in and looking out over this picture window with the emergency boats and the flashing lights and everything out on the lake where the boys had drowned. And, I had, in Wisconsin, they won't let you identify the body. Chris was the first body found. God bless. His friend Patrick's body wasn't discovered for 3 more days, and his poor dad sat on the shore, from dusk till dawn, or from dawn till dusk, and waited, and it was just friggin' heartbreaking. It was very difficult. I will tell you that 16 years before, I had, on a whim or something, went and saw a medium. And the entire session was a rather inconsequential up to the very end of it, when she said, her name was Nancy Myers, and she said, your dad's here, and my dad crossed in 1988, and she said he's holding a caboose and he's telling you railroad. Now, if you look over my shoulder on top of my bookcase is a railroad lantern. My dad spent 40 years on the railroad. Every boy in the family, there were 5 boys and 5 girls. Every boy worked on the railroad in college. I stayed on a couple more years as a brakeman. I worked with my dad. I remember going to the rail yards as a kid. My grandfather was a railroader. My uncle was a railroader. We were a railroad family. So when she said this, it was like, holy cow. The old man really is somewhere, right? He's somewhere. Yeah. Now, he didn't give me the lottery numbers, and he didn't give me any answers to the universal questions. But I did at that point realize that my old man's somewhere. So I put that in a file cabinet in my head and got on with my life. And 16 years later, when they tell me Christopher had drowned, I thought, wait a minute. If my dad's somewhere, that wherever Chris went, he had to be with him. So I just got to figure out where that is. And that started my search. Literally the day I found out that Christopher wasn't on this planet anymore.
Do you think, I believe a lot of people, sometimes I have a lot of friends that are mediums, and doing this show and knowing meetings and my own psychic experiences and that. And I think there's a lot of synchronicity that plays in to when you meet these mediums and the times you do get these readings, the messages that you get. There's importance to that. Do you think if you hadn't had that meeting with that medium, you would have ever considered trying to reach out to Chris from the other side?
Nobody's asked me that question, even at the last book. And that's a great question. And the answer is no. that gave me a knowledge that I didn't know was significant. So it was then that I really thought, holy cow, that message was from 16 years ago was meant for me to recall it now, you know. So I did. I stayed in touch with Nancy Myers, and she had moved to Arizona, so I called her right after Christopher had drowned. She told me amazing things, Jason. She told me things that I didn't know until I read the police report or the coroner's report about the details.
Yeah.
And so I knew it was real. And so I had another session with her where Chris came through and kind of described where he was and the events and what happened. You know, but I was also, I was also greedy. You know, I thought, okay, now I believe this is real. I believe my son is somewhere where my dad, I know, is with him.
Yeah.
I got to figure out some ways to connect if it's real. And at this point, I thought, you know, this is great on the telephone, but I want to look into the eyes of a medium who's looking at my kid.
Yeah.
So I pulled out a website, and I didn't realize till later on, you know, it was actually when I was writing the second book, that the website was Bob Olson's website. And Bob Olson was an investigator from L.A. who wrote this wonderful books about, you know, the other side and searching for his father. And so I pulled up a medium. His name was Andrew Anderson. And I called and made an appointment. I gave him my first name and my cell phone. And I like escape routes. You know, I always have a plan B. So I knew that if I got a little sketchy about this, I'd just bail. You know, he didn't have my credit card number. You know, I could just bail. So the day of that meeting, I did two things. The first thing I did is I stopped by I was in my dresser and pulled out this bracelet that's on my wrist right here. And it's a leather bracelet that my son gave me. Here, I'll show you. Let me see here. It's just this leather bracelet. It just says Dad on it. And Christopher gave it to me when we were in Disney World when he was 6. You know, and it has Goofy on the tag, you know, which is maybe, you know, maybe that's pretty accurate. And but I'd thrown it in my dresser 16 years before. Yeah. And something said, just put it on, you know, so I put it on under my cuff. And then I had ordered some shamrock seeds from Amazon, and they had come in. Now, my wife didn't know I had these seeds. I wasn't hiding shamrock seeds from my bride. You know, it was something that just hadn't come up, and they'd come in the day before, and I was going to see Andrew. Now, kind of a funny thing, and maybe it's a little, you know, it'll help you figure out who I am. But we buried Chris on January 8th, 2016. And literally, you know, 3 miles from the Lake Michigan, frozen, cold, snowy.
Yeah.
And we his godfather and I bought 6. There were 6 plots. We said, we'll take all of them. And the woman said, where do you want to put them? And I said, well, let's put them on the end near this nice little tree, which I last week just hung up a wind chime, a cardinal wind chime. So when the snow melted, he was buried next to another couple, you know, and now his headstone wasn't there yet, you know, because they can't put it in until the ground melts. But I was livid, you know. So I raised a little hell and little heck.
Yeah.
And I raised and ended up writing a little bit of a check, and I moved him over one plot. Now I'm going to occupy the plot that he was in for those 6 months, but I moved him over because, you know, and I go there a lot. Not like some maudlin, sad old man who's feeding pigeons, but it's a good place for us to connect. We can get into that. So when I got there, this was June 30th of 2016, 6 months after Christopher drowned. So the ground was still loose because they had just moved them over, and I planted the shamrock seeds. And I drove out to Arlington Heights where this medium was. I went in and saw him, and he said, you know, your son's here. He's beautiful. He looks like Brad Pitt.
He's a good-looking kid.
Oh, he gets that from his mom, as you can tell. You know, and he got the wild side from me and the looks from his ma. So he said to me, and your family was together on the other side last night celebrating something. What was last night? And I said, well, that was Sally and my 25th wedding anniversary, but we didn't exactly celebrate it. He said, well, your family did. He said, but your son wants to acknowledge that you're wearing the bracelet he gave you. and your son wants to acknowledge that you were at his grave today planting something.
Oh, wow.
That's the moment, Jason, that it went from believing to knowing, and I never looked back.
And that's so important for people. I've, doing this, I'm very open to people around me in life and even at work that I'm into the paranormal. I have so many people, oh, mediums, they're full of it and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you haven't had an experience. You haven't actually been proven to you. Trust me, when it does, it'll shake you. It'll rock your world and change your perspective. And that's why I do this show. That's why I bring mediums on here. We do live spirit box sessions where people call in and we get incredible responses. I have no care about trying to contact celebrities. All I care about is people calling in and connecting with their loved ones. Because I want, if I do anything important with this show, is to open up people's eyes to that reality like you did.
There's nothing more important than what you're doing, Jason. I mean, the bottom line is there's nothing more important. Susan Giesman, the brilliant author, medium, I was just watching something of hers, and we become kind of pals. And she was, talk about a straight arrow. She was the assistant to the Joint Chief of Staff. She was commander of the Navy. Her stepdaughter died, and she became a medium. And she retired, and she travels around the country connecting parents' kids. She did a reading for me off, and just said, look, Chris came through, and let's you and I do a private session on Zoom later on. And she, it wasn't about her pride, her ego, or money. She wanted to do a service. She wanted to help somebody. The somebody was me, and Chris came through, and it was an amazing situation. So, I think people are skeptics, and that's okay. Just keep your mind open. The bottom line is mediums are like chefs or relief pitchers. There's some really good ones, and there's some okay ones. But the days of the charlatan moving stuff around and voices and ghosts and stuff. The internet's kind of taking care of that. I have never met anybody who was a medium that wasn't in this for the right reason. I've had people say to me, gee, they should just give away their services. And I said, do you go to therapists? You see a therapist? Because chances are my wife's a therapist, and telehealth, and she bills people. Healers bill people so they can continue to heal. So I'm a huge fan of mediums. I wrote a chapter about mediums. And because, to be honest with you, that changed the direction of the rest of my life, was involvement with Andrew Anderson, Sherry Jewell, Tony Russo, Thomas John.
Thomas John, yeah.
I've had an amazing experience. Thomas John walked up to us in 100 people in a theater and said, "Who lost a kid in the winter in a small boat?" And my wife and I raised our hand. He goes, "Wow, he's beautiful." And once again, he said he looked like Brad Pitt. And he waved his hand. He goes, Did he smoke pot? He said, "Yeah, he smoked pot." He goes, "Because, I'm seeing that." He said, "Did he drown with 3 other people?" Well, he said, "Yeah." I mean, it was just, he was maybe,
it's incredible.
Maybe 10 minutes, and it felt like we were there for 45 minutes. I've had a private reading with Thomas John where he's come through stuff where you wouldn't believe. He named all 5 of my siblings, or all 4 of my siblings who at that time were on the other side by name. The bottom line, a lot of times what they're doing is just giving you validation, and they're not giving it. They're cell towers, man. Your kids, your loved ones, your, people that you're trying to connect with in spirit, they're the ones sending the messages, and I've never had a blowout, a real swing and a miss, yet. And I've been doing this, it'll be 6 years, January 3rd, 2022 will be 6 years since Chris crossed over.
Now, having these, after your, initial loss of Chris, and, having the mediums validate this for you, when did, from what I'm reading, you have this connection to Chris, like you talked to him, How did that start? Like, what was Chris saying? How did that communication go for you personally?
Another great question. So, remember, you talked about people in rooms that your friends, that didn't change the room. Well, this room that I'm in is my home office. I do a lot of my writing here, and I started coming in here, and Christopher's spirit moves very freely here. He was happy here. And so I started coming in here in the middle of the night. I was getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'd come in and I'd light some sage and I'd realign my chakras and I'd meditate and I'd pick up all the tools that I picked up along the way. I didn't walk in here with a bag full of tricks of how to connect, right? It was like, Jen Weigel would tell me this, somebody would tell me that. On each level of the chakra, I'd breathe in, hold my breath for 7 seconds, and exhale, and I'd say Christopher's name on the exhale. Why? Because somebody told me that. None of this is I'm not coming up with any new steps here. So I'd come in here and I would just feel good about it. And on the anniversary's crossing, January 3rd, 2017, I came in at 3 o'clock in the morning and I did all the things that we talked about. Yeah. And I listened to a guided meditation and I randomly picked some and have some of my favorites. And at the time, just randomly picked one. And on my desk was a legal pad and a pen. And the pen is actually like a Bic Velocity pen that I had taken from Andrew Anderson's house. He'd given me this one pen. And it's not an expensive, it's a pen. It's, you buy it by the box. But I had a Staples legal pad and that. Now, ever since then, I've used the same ones. I'll buy them in bulk because I'm not going to take a shot of screwing up my win record here,
Right.
So on the anniversary, I go through my routine, and I started getting downloads from Chris, and it was messages, and he was saying, "Hey, Pop, you're not going to believe this place. It's beautiful. It's blue. It's green." He said the air is beautiful. It's love. It's warm. It's love air. And then he starts talking about what the other side is like. And now here's where I knew it wasn't just me trying to put a Band-Aid on my broken heart. He said to me, "Dad, you got to let go of the resentment. I loved Scotty. He loved me. We're pals. It wasn't his fault." Well, what he was talking about, the people who owned the lake house, the kid was his friend since, middle school or whatever. And I was mad at him. I had to blame somebody, right? I'm Irish. Irish Alzheimer's
Same here.
Where you forget everything but the grudges, So I wanted to hold on to this resentment. And I'll tell you, initially I was mad at God, and I'll tell you about that right after this.
Yeah.
But I wanted to hold on to resentment. He said, "You got to let go." So I thought, okay, Chris, no problem. For you, I'll let go of this. Fast forward 12 hours. I get a text from some of his fraternity buddies from Northern Illinois University. Now, I'm on the North Shore, which is a nice higher end environment. Well, these kids were more like me. They were more diverse, more of a blue collar background. And Chris just fit in, and these guys were wonderful friends. And they're part of I was out at Northern Illinois for a Penguin Players, which disabled young troupe and we donate to them a lot of emotional disabilities, a lot of Downs. And Chris was a mentor in that for that special ed group. He was studying to be special ed. And didn't study too hard, and I guess that from me. But he, he was doing that. So I get a text from a couple of his buddies that said, "Mr. McHugh, we're going to Christopher's grave today at 3. Will you join us?" And I thought, Sally and I were going to go there at sundown and light a Chinese lantern and let it go. But I thought, wow, that'd be great. Of course, I'll meet you there. So I grabbed the hockey cooler, threw some beer and some Gatorade and a box of cigars, headed up there. And as I pull in the circular driveway of the Sacred Heart Cemetery that's open 24 hours a day, the place was full of cars. And as I look at Christopher's grave, there were 40 kids there.
Wow.
40 kids that spontaneously showed up there. And one of them was Scotty, So not only was Chris trying to help me to, become a better guy by letting go of the resentment, he was also preparing me for this encounter. So instead of stuttering, struggling, ducking the kid, I was able to embrace him and said, "Hey, man, I love you. It wasn't your fault. Could have been my house. Could have been Jason, your house,
Yeah.
It just happened to have been there." And we meet these kids are around my life all the time, but we do this thing, every year, January 3, always, even with COVID last year, we had 30 kids. Instead of coming back to the house, I had tents put up in our backyard with heaters, and we did the party outside because of COVID, in respect.
Yeah.
And so these kids are all part of our lives, But I'll tell you, the first 3 days after Chris had drowned, only a parent that's gone through this understands. You're kind of a walking zombie, but you've got this responsibility. I'm kind of a hyper responsible guy after being a screw up the first part of my life, and so you've got funeral arrangements, you've got readings, you've got a reception, you've got a gravestone, you got a grave spot, you got a plot, you got all kinds of things. So every day you got to make sure the youngest boy's got a suit to wear for the funeral. All these things had to get done. So I couldn't crawl up in a ball and cry. I had stuff to do.
Yeah.
I did plenty of crying, believe me. But every night I'd hit my knees at the end of the day, and I've done this for years, and I thank God I've been sober 36 years. I was a pretty wild guy, as I understood Christopher's Wild Streak. I thank God for my sobriety, and I thank God for my family. But I'd say to God, you and I aren't good, though. You took my kid.
Right.
And after the third day, crawled into bed after, me scolding God.
Yeah.
And I got a download, which is pretty nice to get a download from God. It's not something that happens often. And he said, I didn't take your kid. His free will, your son, his free will and recklessness caused him to come home early. And I welcomed him. And remember, I lost a son too. So it was at that point, Jason, that I went from thinking God was moving me around like a pawn on a chessboard or making me pay for past sins, until I realized that he was a loving father holding me while I was trying to make these arrangements. And my relationship with God has been unbelievable ever since then.
Well, speaking of, before Chris's passing, what was your spiritual thoughts? You said you're Catholic. What did
kind of
a lot of us don't
Catholic.
think about it. Yeah, I get
Catholic.
that.
Christmas and Easter, I'm still not. Church isn't a big place. I'm a very spiritual guy now, but church works for some people, and I don't. It's fine, but I find spirituality in other places, other mediums. So, but I'm knocking it. Go. Do what you got to do. You do your thing, and if you feel the presence of goodness and God somewhere, go there. But I thought of God kind of the same way I think about the Secretary of the Interior, it's like, I know he exists, we just don't interact, and I certainly never thought about what was next, right? I'm a different guy than I was prior to January 3rd, 2016. There's a quote from Haruki Murakami. Now, I don't look like a guy that would quote Haruki Murakami. But he says, once the storm is over, you won't remember how you made it through, how you managed to survive. You won't even be sure, in fact, whether the storm is really over. But one thing is certain. When you come out of the storm, you won't be the same person who walked in. That's what storms are all about, So I'm not the same guy I was prior to January 3rd, 2016. And my son's put me on a path that allows me to be of service and help others, I live my life two ways these days. One is to please my God, and the other is to make my son proud. And as long as I have those two tenets, I can't go wrong.
Exactly. Yeah, as somebody myself, everybody looks at me like, oh, Jason doesn't believe in God, or people thought of him. I'm like, no, I totally believe in God. God saved me.
Yeah.
When I was very young, from very much like Chris, I was very troubled and wild and did stupid things. And, I'm 42 now and look back at myself and like, I am lucky to made it this far. With all the
You and me
stupid
both.
things I did, but God saved me from what I believe is a demonic or shadow person attack. I reached out to God. It saved me. But I don't, I believe in Jesus and I believe in a lot of other, I'm a seeker of truth in all religions. I keep my mind open. Who am I to know what the ultimate truth is? I don't know. But I can try to open my eyes.
Right? It's hard to argue with
Right.
the teachings of Christ, the teachings of Buddha. Right?
Exactly.
There's some pretty good masters out there that if you follow what they say, you're going to be all right.
Exactly. And that's why I've devoted myself to this show. This is my church.
Yeah.
Right here on a Sunday night.
Yeah.
With you people here in the chat room and with you, Joe, reaching out and discovering and opening our eyes to new ideas and possibilities and to the other side, that there's more to this world. And I like you said, I can't imagine what you go through. It is my worst fear as a parent. I have a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old, and they are my world. I can't imagine trying to do all the things you did, to making the arrangements, taking care of your other child. You had to, you have to.
Right.
But how? It's the man. I can't put my mind around it because, losing my kid would just would destroy me. Just destroy everything about me. And even though I know there's an afterlife, Joe, I mean, my 5-year-old, I'll tell you a story, and I don't want to make this about me, and I do sometimes, and I'm sorry.
That's all right.
But this is the idea of why I'm open, why I don't understand why people don't think about the other side, that we're all going to die. We're all going there. Why most people don't question or talk about it or want to think about it. I'm like, why don't you? Because it's the end for all of us. Death and taxes, buddy.
Right.
It's all guaranteed. It's all in the writing. We're all there. When I was not long, but right before I was going to get married to my wife, I was in my parents' living room. We were getting ready to move out. I was getting our first place, and I saw this translucent boy walk through my parents' living room, middle of the day.
Yeah.
My parents' house isn't haunted, but this translucent boy walked up to me. I didn't know if people have heard this story on the show, but he smiled at me. Now, like I told you, I never wanted to have kids. Me and my wife, I was like, I didn't want to bring them into this screwed up world. I still feel the world's pretty screwed up, and I feel like I've been proven right. But this kid smiled at me, and I felt this tremendous love, the same amount of tremendous love when God saved me. It was the same feeling, and I knew this translucent boy who smiled at me. I've always known him. Well, the day my youngest son was born, they took him out of my wife and put him up to my wife, put him by her head, and he smiled. And I took a picture of this moment. He smiled, and I knew that moment, that smile, that translucent boy was him.
Yeah.
He chose us. And he told my wife later, I chose you and my daddy.
Chris told that to Nancy Myers with one of the first readings. He said, I chose you and Mom, and I chose right. I remember when I saw Andrew one of the following times, I said, hey, Andrew said, you want to, and a lot of times mediums will do the same thing. They'll say, how do you want this to go? And I go, look, you wing it. And then at the end, I want 5 questions, right? Now, invariably, Jason, this is so cool. Usually most of those questions are answered before I ever get to them, right?
Right.
But the one question I said to Chris, and Chris was a funny kid. Just look at him. He was just a funny kid, champion of the underdog. He always was a champion of the underdog. He's just one of those kids. And, but funny, good athlete.
Yeah.
We remember reading a tweet long after he was gone that said that we were digging through his phone, and it said Hawaiian shirt going on, bad decisions to follow. It's just so him, man.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that's the kind of kid Chris is. So one of the questions I said to Andrew, I said, ask him if I ever came up short as a father. And Andrew started laughing, smiling. I said, what do you say? He said, God, no, you never came up short, Pop. He said, you are short, but you never came up short. And he said, now let's talk about the haircut. So they're the
busting your chops on the other side.
Right. It's the same personality. These guys don't become Buddha immediately by crossing over. My son still has the same personality to this day. Something interesting is that he told me one time, he said, look, Dad, and this is one of our downloads, and I do this to this day, 2 nights ago, twice, 3 times a month. I get woke out of bed at 3 o'clock in the morning and come in my office, go through the routine. I mean, like up straight, like get out of bed, right? Yes. Come in my office, do the thing, and I get the downloads to this day. And I'm so relieved that they're still continuing, and he said to me, look, Dad, I'm moving up a level, but don't worry about it. It's like me calling you from Arizona or California. The connection's the same, no matter, what level I go to. That was so relieving for me that, his success on the other side isn't going to draw him away from our connection. The name of the second book is I was finishing the first book. And I was a little melancholy. I'd been working on it for a bit. And
it's like, it's your connection to him.
You know what? Every keystroke, every paragraph, he was with me. on every one. So as I'm finishing this, I'm thinking like, dang, And he said, hey, we're not done yet, Pop. We're gonna keep doing this until you cross and you join me. And that was such relief to me. And that's ergo the name of the second book. We're not done yet, Pop.
I love that title.
Yeah, me too.
And you said earlier, people say, or the saying, "Time heals all wounds," is. If somebody says that doesn't understand what it's like to lose a child.
Right.
What I understand with people with grief, even if it isn't a child, even somebody you love, is like that heartache, that pain. That's your for some people, I've had to describe it as like, if I give that up, I feel like I lose my connection to them, or I betray them.
Wow.
I lose them by giving that up. I'm never going to let that go.
You know what?
I
so
totally
right.
understand that. I totally understand that.
You are so, once again, second time, nobody's ever asked me this, because it's exactly true. I actually had a healer come up to me a couple of years in. I was at this group of, presentation with people and a couple of great mediums, and he walked up and he said, "Are you ready to let this go?" I said, "No, take a hike."
That would have been my response too.
I want this. This is directly proportionate to the amount of love I have for this kid. So of course there's a loss, and of course there's pain, but it's so worth it. Now, don't get me wrong. I would much rather, Jason, be abysmally ignorant of everything metaphysical and been watching the Kansas City Chiefs game tonight against Denver with my son eating a pizza.
Yeah, exactly.
But the bell was rung that I can't unring, right? But I wasn't ready to face a world without my son. So I wanted to figure out how to get there. And I started doing what I do, which is dig in and do a little work. I've had people come up to me when I'm speaking in groups and saying, my sister died 5 years ago and I haven't heard from her. And I said, well, what have you done? Tell me what you do to connect. You can't sit in an easy chair and say, nobody's calling me, boo-hoo. I remember, cell phones when you used to have to go out on a deck or a balcony to try to get, and that's the same thing.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, right. What are you going to do to enhance that, right?
Yeah.
You got to do your job. I remember early on, I picked up a book called Idiot's Guide to Connecting with Spirit.
I have that book. I have that book.
I wanted,
Hold it up again. I just got you. It's running slow tonight. My switching screens. It's driving me nuts. But hold that back up. I have this book. Over. There you go. Yeah, I have that book. It's a great book.
It's a great book. And you can pick it up and go to the middle of it or look up what interests you.
Yes.
Right? So the bottom line is we have a responsibility. Listen, I'm kind of a spiritual slug, even, 6 years, almost 6 years into this journey. So if I want to connect with my son, whose consciousness is much higher, I have to raise mine and he's got to lower his so that we can meet in the middle. So that means I've got to go first, right? I've got to, and I don't quote the scriptures very often because 13 years of college or Catholic school, I didn't remember that much, but I do remember that in St. Matthew it said that all you need is a mustard seed of faith. Like if you try, remember there was a book a while ago, and I thought it was a gal's book, it's called The Secret. Fabulous book. But it talks about connecting and manifesting with spirit, with the universe, and we're all connected, we're all energy, energy doesn't die, energy doesn't fade, and
it just transforms.
Remember the movie? There was a movie called What Dreams May Come.
One of my favorite movies I brought up on the show and books. It's the original title of the book I'm trying to think of, but amazing, yes.
And so in Dream May Come, Cuba Gooding Jr. is a spirit guide, and Robin Williams dies, and he gets to the other side, and it's like he couldn't figure this out. And so Cuba Gooding Jr. said to him, look, the origin of the word body is the Anglo-Saxon bodic, meaning abode, which is the physical body. You see, a transient dwelling for the real self. Like you're in your house right now. You're in your house. Doesn't mean you are your house. If your house falls down, you get up and you walk away. And that's what happened. Chris's house no longer was appropriate to hold his spirit. So his spirit moved. His body stayed here, and his spirit just went across the veil. but it's accessible, and he's here, and he can connect with you, with me.
What I find, talk to people of different religions and that, and people say, oh, you can't be Christian if you're trying to communicate with the dead or other spirits, and I've always felt that's so wrong. People are up to have their own opinion, but I find a lot of things in the Bible that do direct you to communicate, not just trying to, but to connect with your loved ones on the other side. That what Jesus was trying to teach us, that this isn't the end. That these spirits are part of the Father God, and that we're connected to them, and why shouldn't we not connect with them after they move on to the other side?
The communion of saints. What does the communion of saints mean? Right. That means, why is it that the saints' spirit's alive and we can call on them and
right.
And they can come at Fatima or wherever, but what, you got to be a certain rank to qualify? No, all the energy is there. Even St. John 16:16, after a little while you will see me no longer. Then again, after a little while you will see me, which means his spirit was back. Some people have these concrete beliefs based on what? Based on writings from people. And I'm a big fan of the New Testament, but it's limited. Right? But it's limited. Somebody started writing 50, 60 years. They were friends of the guy who saw it. And now we're going to write it down. Dude, if you asked me to write what happened this morning, I'd miss half of it, much less 50 years later.
I think if you just look at the messages of Jesus, he's trying to open people's eyes that there's more to this world than the material. There's more to this world than that. It's our connection to each other. I mean, look at the night he was taken, he was talking to the spirits of Moses and Abraham. I think he was trying to show, like I said, Jesus shows us the way. I think he was showing us the way.
I do too. It's like my buddy Craig McMahon, and we become pals. It's funny, you said you did spirit boxes. Well, right after the golf outing, and I do a golf outing every year, and half the money goes to Imbalance, half the money goes to Penguin players. And we actually went out and saw the Penguin players. And these kids are all emotional disabilities, mostly Downs. And the mentors are these special ed students who stand behind. And we raised money for scholarships from them. And we were honored to be there again this year. And it was, and heartbreaking, unbelievable and heartbreaking at the same time. And so he was doing something good. And it made us very proud of him. And I could feel his energy absolutely everywhere. His energy was there. He was with us.
I think that's what part of the Holy Spirit is.
Yeah, I do
when
too.
They talk about, when three gather, it's there.
Right.
Because they're always with us, and I feel sad for people who can't touch upon it or open their mind to that. Especially for people who have lost loved ones or children. It's like they're there with you.
And you know what I say? I say all the time. I said, look, I'll make you a deal. You lost a kid. You don't believe in the other side. You don't believe in God. You don't believe in mediums. Fake it till you make it. Try it. And if it doesn't work, I'll refund all your misery, But the bottom line, when you break through and you have somebody tell you that your son is there and tells you that you planted shamrocks. You didn't say shamrocks. He said you planted something in his grave. Those are confirmations. And all that is an affirmation. It's saying, I'm here, And I got to tell you, I'm about ankle deep in this after 6 years, There's still a bunch that, I'm working on the third book and I'm in no hurry, but I want to do past life regression. I want to do spirit dreams, which I just had one of the first this morning,
you were talking about that before the show.
So there's Chris tells me in the second book often, don't get ahead of yourself, Pop. You're not an expert. Just stay, keep coloring within the lines and I'm going to help. And that I'm supposed to help others. And what he says, look, Dad, you're a great ambassador because you don't seem like somebody that would be so involved in this life. He said, so you got to bring the message that people might not hear it from anybody else except to a guy that looks like you and talks like you,
I've known people in my life that have lost loved ones, men particularly. Yeah. I'm not trying to knock on us men, but
knock on us. We need it.
But they go totally atheist, like hate, like God doesn't exist. No, there's no afterlife. Like they just become so resentful, and it breaks my heart because you wish you could break through to them that yes, you had this loss, and I even get into you mentioned Buddha. I mean, life is suffering.
Yeah.
But there is a pathway out of it, and it's like you having the realization that there's more than this world.
There was a great book called The Shack. Remember the book? It was very tough to read.
Yeah.
Great book, and at one point, God is talking to a guy, a father who lost his daughter, brutally lost his daughter, full of hate and resentment and pain. And God said, just because I work incredible good out of unspeakable tragedies doesn't mean I orchestrate the tragedies.
Right.
Life is life. We have in crazy things that I firmly believe after inspection. I didn't, after research, I didn't just say, okay, I buy all this. I believe in soul contracts. I believe in exit points. Christopher, had 2 near-death experiences.
Oh, really?
First one, he flipped a truck. He was working at a ranch, in Balance Ranch. He was working there as staff.
Yeah.
So at 5 o'clock in the morning, driving a pickup truck, on a beat up, horrible cattle road, flips it, walks away unscathed, sprained his wrist. Another time he was hiking and a supervisor was, he was staff, but a supervisor had them go into an empty cave up and have a soup pie, which was crazy, and he fell down this mine shaft, fell down 30 feet.
Wow.
It was a 100-foot mine shaft, and there was a ledge 30 feet. He broke himself up pretty good,
Yeah.
And he told me, Dad, there was a guy in white that was down there with me the entire time. And I talked to the guys at the accident site. There was no guy in white.
Yeah.
I thought he was just delusional. It was only after he transitioned that I realized that was an angel. And then there's a woman who wrote a book called The Happy Medium, and her name is Russo. And
Yes.
I read her book, and it said that on the 3rd go round of near-death experiences, you go. Now, I don't know what the rules are, and you and I aren't going to know until we cross. But she said 3's it, so I go, oh my God, this was, he ran out of hall passes on the 3rd one. And then, he went. But I will tell you this is huge. I was just communicating with a person whose son took his life, a parent, and kind of like, she had seen something on an interview. She emailed me. We were going back, and I said, look, you got to understand, your son is now in a really happy place. And I'm not saying this to make you feel better about yourself. I know because my son told me that he's in a great place. And whatever caused him, whatever pain caused him to take his life is gone. Any maladies, any addictions is gone, So they're in this place. Christopher told me, kind of speaks boots on the ground, kind of like I do. And he said, look, Pop, and he calls me Dad when it's serious, and Pop when we're playing a little bit. He goes, well, you gotta understand, Pop. He said, your side is fine. Your world is great. He said, think of it as like, remember when you were in football camp in high school? We had a 2-week football camp, and he said it was a lot of work and it's a lot of sweat and a lot of, back and forth and injuries, but you had a lot of fun and camaraderie and closeness. And he said, that's what your world's like. Mine's a beach bungalow on Maui, Dad. It's like, it's a good deal, so, the bottom line is I don't fear death. Now, I have work to do. I've still got 2 kids. I got 25, 22, and my wonderful wife who's a therapist and very much, connected with me and my work here. She's finishing up her first book, and she's brilliant, and it'll be probably a lot more like prose than mine is, and I've got a lot of work to do. But if God tapped me on the shoulder and said, pal, calling me in from the bullpen, you're pitching tomorrow. Let's go, because I know that I've lived this life beyond my wildest dreams. I've had a life far luckier than I've ever deserved, far nicer. But I know that when I transition, I get to spend the next walk around the track with the kid I adore so much, so, when the time comes, I have no fear.
See, what I've struggled with as a father, I suffer from what my wife calls worrywартness and anxiety, and my father didn't want anything to do with me when I was a kid. He took off, and I've always swore I will always be a part of my children's life. I will always be there for them. But the one thing is I can't do anything about what life throws. What my exit point is.
Right.
And I fear losing them or them losing me and separation. Even though I know we're not separated, I even know all the experiences I have, I still fear it.
Jason, look at me.
I had trouble reading your book.
It's a bad deal. It's a terrible trade, right? But it's a lot better than thinking it's over, that it's blacklist, that it's done.
I don't believe that.
This is so much better than that. I get to connect with him. In the second book, I read about thin places, which is cool. The first book is about the journey and pretty much picking up at the beginning, with just trying to figure this out. And the second book is a whole lot of lessons for parents who've lost kids that maybe I'm just a little bit down the road ahead of them, right?
Right.
But I want them to prepare it. I want them to prepare for this stuff and give them permission to do what I do. I'm no shrinking violet, right? But today I'm watching this Penguin Players and I'm crying my eyes out, and if anybody has an issue with that, I don't care. I'm the youngest of 10 kids in an Irish Catholic family. We moved to the suburbs, with 10 kids, dogs, spontaneous football games, parties. The neighbors hated us, so from the very beginning, I never cared outside about my circle, what people thought. And I've carried that, somebody gave me a great quote. It said, I had the unassailable self-confidence that comes from a childhood insulated with love. You didn't. Your dad took a walk. Shame on him. And I'm sure he regrets it. My family was this amazing family. 2 families merged into one because of a car accident that took my aunt's life. My mom and dad just took these 5 kids in. And I didn't even know they weren't brothers and sisters until I was in 4th grade. My sister didn't know until she was graduating from high school. Because we were young at the time. So I had this love and not caring what other people thought. So when people say to me, are you a little concerned about, people thinking you're like off the reservation? And I said, I don't care.
Right.
Somebody said to me, what do you tell people that just don't buy into it? I said, change the channel. You can probably watch the Daily Show right now. You know what I mean? Or whatever, But if you've lost somebody and you're hurting, that's who I care about. You know what I mean? I'll walk through fire for those people.
We got to go to commercial break, and I want to continue this conversation, and we'll open up the phone lines when we come back, too. And I'd like you to get into what parents can do in these situations to make these connections, your recommendations for that, too, when we come back. But we got to go to commercial break. We'll be back in just a few minutes, so hang in there. Phone lines will be open. Share your experiences. Like I said, this holiday season, I do know this is the time of year when it hurts us the most for those we've lost, even pets. I know. I'm going through that right now. Call in, share your experiences. This is the time to do it. We'll be back after a short commercial break.
Conducting an experiment into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Ken Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
Do you wish for more paranormal and spiritual content? The Paranormal Chronicles magazine is a free digital magazine crammed with the very best in paranormal and spiritual articles and features. No sign-up, no subscription, just free reading and knowledge for you. Read today at www.theparanormalchronicles.com/magazine.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope.
That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Parenation magazine is a new paranormal magazine based out of Denver, Colorado. Our goal isn't just to give you the best paranormal content out there, but to promote paranormal unity. We're doing this by giving everyone an opportunity to tell their stories and to share their experiences. For more information, follow us on Facebook at Parenation Magazine and soon, ParanationMag.com.
I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is the extraordinary travels of a young, alone, and broke psychic in the highly anticipated new book from internationally renowned psychic, medium, medical intuitive, and best-selling author Sherry Dillard. Critics have described I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like as an engrossing memoir, an empowering story of how a broken girl came to accept her psychic gift, a refreshing and fun read. I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is available through Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold.
Edgar Allan Poe wrote Spirits of the Dead with a pen dipped in warm blood. You will see the ultimate in terror with this important all-star cast. Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda in Edgar Allan Poe's Spirits of the Dead. Only Poe's demented genius could bring to the screen such horror and evil. Spirits of the Dead stars Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda. Directed by three masters of the cinema, Federico Fellini, Louis Malle, and Roger Vadim. Spirits of the Dead is an adventure in terror beyond your wildest nightmares. Spirits of the Dead in color is rated R.
The answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything is 42. Yes, I thought it over quite thoroughly. It is, it's 42. It would have been simpler, of course, to have known what the actual question was.
But it was the question. The ultimate question. Of everything.
That's not a question. Only when you know the question will you know what the answer means.
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444
or 260-225-9419. Or by Skype caller ID 00JBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight's guest is Joe McQuillen. He's the author of My Search for Christopher on the Other Side and his newest book, We're Not Done Yet, Pop, My Lessons from the Other Side. The phone lines are open. You can call in tonight, join the conversation. Let me make sure they're open here. I always say that because I always forget to open them up after I say that. But they are open now. You can call in. If you've lost somebody tonight, and in the next couple weeks, the next couple shows, we are covering this topic because of the holidays. I know this is hard on a lot of people, especially if you've lost a child. Call in, join the conversation. Joe is an excellent person to talk to about this. He's gone through hell and fire of it, you know, things I can't imagine as a parent to be able to deal with. But he's made this connection. It's amazing to be able to handle that kind of loss and still feel like you haven't lost, that you're still there, they're still there with you. I want that for everyone who's lost a loved one. And that's why I do the show and why I do the Spirit Box sessions. It's all about people opening their eyes that we're not ever disconnected. We're always connected to each other. We're always there. So call in tonight, join the conversation, but let's go ahead and get back to our guest. Unmute myself. All right, Joe. So, you know, tonight I'd definitely like to get into helping parents and anyone connect with love. And from my own personal experience, you know, I've talked on the show, I've had a lot of strange, weird paranormal experiences. I've been a believer on the other side, even before I totally, you know, became even a big believer in God. I've had experiences ever since my earliest memories of knowing that things were more than what people said they were, that there's much more to this crude matter that they were made of. You know, I've had psychic experiences. I've had experiences where I've, you know, communicated with spirits, but it's all been uncontrolled. You know, it's all been happenstance, things that happened. There's one time in my life where I actually tried to do it. And one of the books I read was that Communications with Spirits, Idiot's Guide. It kind of helped me. I used a meditation, like self-meditation CD. And I wanted to connect with my grandfather who had passed because I didn't have a very close relationship with him because of my deadbeat father. My father to me is my stepdad. He's been my true father, you know, like he's my dad, you know. He's always, you know, been there for me. I couldn't ask for a better dad. The other one's just a sperm donor. So it left some resentment with that side of the family, and there's always been issues. Well, my grandfather passed. You know, I felt that loss of that I didn't get to connect with him like I wanted to. And I'll never forget hearing a story from an aunt of mine who had took care of him towards the end of his life. He had dementia and didn't speak for the last 2 years of his life in the nursing home. But on the day he died, and this bothered me, the day he died, according to her, she took him up to her usual thing, up to the window that he would look out, and he just laughed and said, "Life's a joke." And not long after that passed away, and that bothered me. So I wanted to reach out to him because I felt awful that I you know, wasn't his fault that his son didn't want a part of me, and I should have done more to connect with him. And I did this whole guided meditation, and it was really weird. It went from a guided meditation to a very lucid dream, but I was awake. You know, I don't think I fell asleep. It was like the scene, I always describe it like the scene in Wizard of Oz, where like everything's black and white to, you know, I'm here on my guided meditation to full on color, what dreams may come kind of experience, where there was this stream, and he was on the other side of the stream. And we weren't talking. It was like a telepathic thing. But he was telling me it was all right. And, you know, most people be like, oh, that's just your imagination. I didn't believe it was. I felt him. I felt that connection. I felt my step-grandmother was there with him, too. You know, I felt it was real. You know, and after that, I you know, exactly, that people can do this. There is a way, like you said, you have to raise yourself up to that vibration.
So two things, Jason. One is you got two kids, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm not a medium. I don't want to be medium, right? I want to connect with my son. And fortunately, my favorite sister who's crossed was Christopher's godmother on January 6, 2019. She's visited me and come through with mediums in an incredible way. But I just got a download from my son that said, tell Jason to lighten up. His kids are going to be fine. I mean, that's the term, lighten up, he said.
Well,
so,
I think tell Christopher, thank you.
I think he's just, he sees a dad who's concerned and just wants you to know, And you mentioned the stream. You haven't gotten to this far in the book yet, but on October 16th of 2018, Chris said to me, "I miss you too, Dad. We will share this place, this incredible place. It'll be like crossing a shallow stream. You have to cross it yourself. But I'm right on the other side. So it's just natural to walk across to me. And then you're
It was a shallow stream.
Yeah.
I call it like a stream. It's just like a shallow stream. And my grandfather was on the other side on the bank.
He said, you and me, how's that for awesome? But not today. Today is for writing books and presentation. Carry the word. We're all behind you. Now, I don't know who the heck we're all behind you. Maybe family, I don't know. But you mentioned stream. And here's why I know that none of this is me, because I had never envisioned that when you made that transition, that for me, for him and I, for you, for your grandfather, you personally have to make that step across the stream to transition. You, for me, making that step, he told me he couldn't bring me across. I have to come over and then we'll be together. But how's that for, you and I just chatting a bit and you talking about a stream, and I had this page open.
Yeah, I haven't got to that far in the book.
Right.
Like I said, honestly, it's not your writing, it's me. When I open up the first chapter and you're kind of going over that loss, and even listening to you tonight, it's hard for me because, like I said, it's a fear, and like Christopher said, I need to lighten up, not worry, as
How's
everybody
that
else
for a
tells
great
me.
term? Lighten up.
Yeah. We do have somebody waiting on hold here if you'd
Great.
like to take a call to start off. We got Zach on the line. He always has great questions. How you doing tonight, Zach?
This weekend's been rough, man.
I hear you.
I mean, with the whole concept of loss is just this time of year. I mean, last year I lost my paternal grandfather, but this past Friday as well, I lost not just a business partner, but I've also lost a very good friend.
I'm sorry, Zach.
So it's been pretty rough. So I've been listening very attentively to this show. But I have two questions tonight, and I'll keep them as short as possible. Hey, Joe, I love hearing everything that you're saying, man. How you doing this evening?
Hey, Zach, thank you.
So my first question goes back really to when you were communicating with your son. Based on some of the experiences that you've had, when a spirit crosses into the other side, do they have some part in creating like the paradise that they want in heaven? Why or why not?
Spot on. Yes.
Yeah.
And the answer is unequivocally 100%. Let me give you two great examples. Christopher and I like beaches, and we connect. Crazy thing is, this is sand from Siesta Key in Sarasota. I had an amazing experience where I connected with him in 2016 there. It was just unbelievable. He walked through me, and it was incredible. And I subsequently found out that the sand on Siesta Key isn't sand. It's 99% quartz crystal flown down from the Appalachian 2,000 years ago. Now, when my buddy who lived in Sarasota, who's a real estate agent, told me that, I thought, yeah, it's good real estate agents, fable. I looked it up. It's exactly true. So I always keep Siesta Key sand around and sprinkle it when I'm writing. So Chris and I love beaches. So that we connect there. I saw Thomas John one time and Sally's father, who wasn't a great dad. He was a decent guy, but not a great dad, especially not to his daughter. And terrific, my daughter's precious to me. But, Thomas John said to her, hey, your dad's here. And I'm not trying to, bring bad memories, but he's saying he was a little disappointed that you were the firstborn and you weren't a boy. Well, and that's kind of like how it was her entire life. And so he said, I see him and he's in like a khaki jacket and he's got a dog. He's bird hunting. Did he bird hunt? And I said, Warren was at his best in the field. He loved dogs and the field and hunting. And yeah, he said, well, he's a collector because I'm seeing urns and crystals and not crystals, jewels and paintings. And he said, I see a cannon. And Warren actually was a collector and raised a Spanish galleon, and he had a cannon in his office that my brother-in-law now has. And it was like, holy cow. And Warren had come through. That was great because Sally and I were at this meeting together. It was a group. It was like 6 of us. And most of the entire reading was for her, and Chris came flying through. But then subsequently, Warren's come through in meetings for me. And I'm thinking, dude, you're not my dad. We're on the clock here. I'm paying for this. Why don't you come back when your daughter's around, But so I absolutely, positively, 100% know that we create what brings us joy. Christopher mentioned a beach house and bungalow in Maui, right? That's his happiness. That's mine. We connect at night on beaches unbelievably. And so, when I'm golfing, I love to golf. I'm too old. So a couple of years ago, I hung up my hockey skates and loved to golf. And we were, I feel him around me all the time when I'm on the golf course. It's just some places are peaceful, wonderful places. But I 100%, for Warren, the afterlife is bird hunting, in an open field and a good dog. For Chris, it's a Hawaiian shirt and a beach hut. So yeah, we do. I think I look forward to that, right? Because there's a lot of things that bring me joy, and if I can do that for eternity, let's go.
Right.
What's the second question, Zach?
Awesome. My second question really goes back to just from the communications also that you got from your loved ones and your son and all that. Do they really have a concept of time over in the afterlife?
Great question.
That's an unbelievably good question. And the bottom line is there's a concept of time. It just doesn't apply. And he tells me that. And he also told me that, I'm not smart enough to grasp it, but I will when I make the journey. When I cross the stream, I'll get it. But, so when we talk about, I've at times haven't been able to get up when I know he's wanting to talk at 3 a.m. I try to get up, fall back asleep. And he'll say to me the next time we meet, don't worry about it, Pop. Time's not the same here. We got all the time in the world. When you answer the bell, we'll have our conversation. So, it's kind of like space-time continuum. I got no idea how to figure that one out. Looked at it, scratched my head, moved on, right? But so I think what it is they recognize what time is. It just doesn't apply.
Okay, cool. And you know what? I just had one really quick third question. It's kind of an off-topic question that just came up.
If it's as good as the first two, I'm in, Zach.
He's always got good ones.
What is your favorite cigar?
Oh, yeah, Zach, the cigar aficionado. I should have known.
Okay, huge. If you look behind, I got a great stand-up humidor. A buddy of mine after the golf outing sent me a box of Special Reserve San Cristobals from Cuba that are my favorite. But my day-to-day cigar is a Romeo and Juliet, a 60 ring gauge that I that I just enjoy on a daily basis. But when it's time to celebrate, I pull out one of the special ones. I got to tell you, I go to his grave all the time. Now, I have to let you know, it's not like some old pathetic guy sitting on, feeding pigeons in the park, right? I'm a busy guy. I love to. Yeah. I'm always on the move. I was up at 5 this morning writing a chapter. Went to see this, the thing that I pick up my daughter at the airport. Then I came here and walked my dog down the beach. I mean, that's just how I like to keep moving. But I love going to the grave. I know he doesn't live there, but we connect there. It's a thin place for us. So I got a Buffalo Bills folding chair. I always grab a Romeo and Juliet 60 ring gauge because I always want to. Every time I'm at the grave, I smoke a cigar because there's a thing about tobacco, in Indian spiritual culture.
Yes.
And so I just think it's like even on the other side, you're going to know it's me, And I sit there and I usually bring my lab, and I connect with him, and I just fill him in, and his grave is always standing tall. It's always standing tall. And I have a cigar, and I relax, and I connect, and I do a meditation. Sometimes I just fill him into the day. Sometimes I just feel him, and sometimes he sends me a sign, And so, that's a thin place for me. That's a place that makes me happy. It's not a sad place.
I hear you, man, and that is so beautiful. I'm having a Tatawahe Varoku right now, so
You're gonna be able to sleep after
next
that
time
one. Hope you had a big meal.
I'm a full body guy. I can be able to
I'm
handle
medium.
that. But
I'm a medium guy.
next time you're in Arizona, man, I'll have to get you a stick.
Dude, I'm in Arizona relatively often. I speak at Balance Ranch, which is near Fort Huachuca. I shot a documentary with Craig McMahon in Phoenix, and my buddy lives in Cave Creek, and so I'm a big fan of Arizona. So let's make that happen, bro.
Yeah, I live in Mesa, just east of Phoenix, and all that. But so now
I've been to
and then I
ball
go
games
up into
there, man. I've been to
Scottsdale.
spring training in Mesa.
Well, there you go, man. Joe, thank you so much for answering my questions, man. I love hearing everything that you're saying. You're a beautiful soul. I love your story, and I can't wait to hear more, man.
Good. Get the books. They're good.
Thank you, Zach. You always have great questions.
He really does.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
You too, bud. You're mentioning the beach. I'm in Michigan City, Indiana, and we have and our beach here is pretty much 99% quartz like that.
Yeah.
Here,
Yeah.
it's incredible. It's incredible beach. I'm not a beach guy, but I'm a mountain guy. I like if I ever could move somewhere to be in the mountains, but it is crazy. The quartz and everything. You do feel like there's a power there with that sand.
There is a power there, and I'm going to tell you. That brings me to another thing about. I believe in past life regression. I believe that we've
Myself,
had
too.
past lives. I've been told, and I completely buy into the fact that reason Chris and I were so close, and we could just be. We could just be, and other times we could just go back and forth and talk your ear off, And people said, well, one medium said, a couple actually. One said it was we were twin flames, which I buy, and another said that we had been in another life together as siblings. So that's why we were so comfortable. So I'm a beach. I love golf courses. I love beaches. I love water. I love the tropics. My baby is 22. He's out in he's in Colorado, and he goes to Boulder, and he's just in love with it. Now you get me out in the mountains, I look around and go, yeah, that's nice.
Where's my beach?
Yeah. So I think I know that I have had other lifetimes.
Me too.
In the tropics that were very happy for me, and the mountains do very little. They're wonderful. Isn't that nice? Other people, I feel pretty good about the desert. I love the desert, not like the tropics. But when I get off an airplane, or I'll be down in 2 months in Florida for February and March this year, again, and working on the third book, and as soon as I step outside and feel that heavy air in my lungs, I know I'm home. Now I'm in this house 28 years, right? We've been in this house, and we did a bunch of renovations when I was just upgrades and stuff, when the deck and bathrooms and counters and whatever. And the neighbor next door said, I see you guys doing a lot of work. Are you planning on selling? I said, no, I'm planning on dying here. That's why I want it nice, So I'm never gonna leave this house. This house is for us, but I'm gonna spend a few months every year, on the Gulf Coast or the Gulf Shore and enjoying, the winter there. But this place is a thin place for me. I feel him. I feel him right now. I get a tingle on the back of my neck when he's around. And I felt him when he came through with a message for you.
Yeah. I believe it too. And the past life thing is something we talk about on the show. We've had past life regressionists on, like Chris Lee, him and his wife. I mean, it's a hard concept for some people that don't really understand past lives. But Chris Lee, I mean, him and his wife, they believe and this is where it gets weird for people, but we don't understand the mystery of us. I mean, people say, in the Bible that you won't recognize each other on the other side. I think that really refers to past lives because there's so much more to us than just this persona. For Chris Lee and his wife, they believe he was her father in another past life. And that's difficult. People are like, oh, that's gross. You don't understand the depths of our spirits and our relationships and connections. You just don't get it. and get your mind out of the gutter about it. It's
Right.
not about, it's so, our relationships are so much deeper. You don't even understand. And I love, I can't wait. I hope you do publish a book on this, on your research on, and your experiences with the past lives, because
I'm
it's
doing
something
it now. I took my first past lives a couple months ago, and it was okay. It's like anything else, right? We talked about mediums being like chefs,
Yeah.
Or coaches, right? You got to find the right one. So I was doing an interview yesterday on a radio station in New Jersey, and they had this amazing medium come out for the first 10 minutes, knew nothing about me, right? And she said, and they said they just wanted to introduce her, and she's kind of like the in-house medium there. And she said, your son's here, and he's mentioning mentor. Does that make sense to you? And today we gave out the mentor awards at Northern Illinois University in Chris's honor. And she said, he's talking about a golf outing that you have, that you should keep doing it. We've had 6 in a row. And it's funny, Jason, a few years back, I thought, am I imposing on all my buddies? And, is it time to hang this thing up? I sent out an invite, and by 4:00 in the afternoon, we were full. Right.
Wow.
And people are leaving, and it's the greatest golf outing in the history of golf outing. I mean, it's so much fun. We have a band, we play at night. We just have a ball. I have a table full of cigars. There's an open bar for, I don't drink. A lot of my buddies don't, but a lot of other guys do. And you know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with alcohol. There's something wrong with alcohol and me. You know what I mean? It's like, so everybody has this amazing time. We have this great golf, and we do it in 4.5 hours. And I don't do anything slow. And if you're going to take too much time, I'm going to move you on like with a cattle prod, right? So everybody has this amazing, and it starts like 3 days before with outings and golf and different golf courses and so much fun, And she said to me, "So, do you do something in his honor? Was it a golf outing?" This woman didn't know me from Adam.
Right.
And so it was just a validation. Well, I then went on her website, and she does past lives regression. That was this morning. It's okay.
Oh, wow.
So I'm going to hook up with her because I want to do a quality past life regression, right? And I want to do a bunch of them. There's a lot of stuff to figure out.
Yeah.
Right? Once just open up the can. Once you open it up, I mean, it's all up for grabs. Let's figure this out. You were laughing because you said we're all going. I'm going to a wedding in Richmond, the whole family. I mean, we're a big family. I flew home for a Bills game a couple weeks ago, and there were 20 of us, 20 McQuillens. So we're having this huge wedding. One of my great nephews, who was my son's age. I was the youngest of 10, so my nephews and nieces are 5-6 years younger than me, And so their kids are now getting married. And Chris was really close with these boys. They were twins, and we would have a family reunion every year in Canada, and there'd be 40 of us, and these guys were real close. So, we're going to this wedding. I'm going to this wedding for 2 days, 3 days. I'm already online looking up where's a good place for dinner. Do I take a shuttle? Do I get a limo from the airport? What's the best way to do this? What are we going, checking out the hotel? And I'm going there for a couple of days. We're all going to the other side, and people aren't trying to figure it out. And I didn't.
Yeah.
Until January 3rd, 2016, I figured there was a heaven, but it really didn't involve me. We'll get there. When years ago I was looking at it. Christopher had ADD, and he comes from it, pretty righteously from me, and we saw this expert speak, and he said, you got to understand, when you have an ADD kid, there's 2 kinds of time. There's now, and there's not now. And that kind of cleared it all up for me. And that's how I live my life about going to the other side. Well, it's not now. Why should I worry about it? Because we're all going. That's the one guarantee for everybody who's listening, everybody who's watching, producers, everybody. You're all going, guys. Try to figure it out a little bit ahead of time so you're not so shocked. Chris told me one time, Dad, when you cross, it's going to be less of a shock, less of a learning curve than it was for me, because of the stuff I'm telling you.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, so a little bit of a benefit for this,
Yeah, like I said, it's always amazed me why. I mean, I get why people don't get into UFOs or aliens or Bigfoot and all the other discussions, but when it comes to what waits us after our inevitable. I just never could understand why so many people. I know some of it's fear, but some people just really have no interest, want to think about it at all. And like I said, I know some of that's fear, but we're all going there. You got to have some questions about it. You got to have
some
questions
arrogance,
about
right? A little bit of arrogance, like this is it, right? Are we
Yeah.
really that arrogant that this is it?
Yeah, I know. I don't get it. You know, past lives, I feel gifted from God for giving me two very vivid dreams I had in my life that showed me my past lives. I've had the past life regression later, like with Chris Lee did the past life regression, was great, and I did have experiences, but it can't. Sorry, nothing against Chris Lee in past life regression, but it can't compare to those two vivid dreams.
Right.
One, I was a Buddhist monk that betrayed my I guess leader or temple, whatever, and was shot and killed with all the rest of everybody else in the temple. That's a whole other story. But one of them, talking about the connections to our loved ones in other past lives, I was a little black girl who was beaten to death by my slave owner father. I knew after that dream, waking up from that guy was my biological father that didn't want to have anything to do with me. And I swear that's part of that connection and this, the reasons why he didn't want to have anything to do with me, like subconsciously maybe. But I knew that was what I was being shown in that dream.
That's amazing.
That's why I'm fascinated with past life regression and experiences and memories people have, because we don't fully understand the connections we have with people. It's much more than the meeting and the experience and knowing somebody. We don't even know how deep it really can go. I mean, you meet a stranger, and it's like you know them.
Right.
You've always known them. I know people have that experience.
My best friend's a guy named Al Conrad, and we grew up in Buffalo, New York. We met freshman year of high school at Bishop Timon in South Buffalo. We were best friends ever since. We went through wild kids, played ball together, chased girls together. He was better at both than I was, and we remained friends through the death of his wife 15 years ago, to my alcoholism, to my loss of my son. And he comes in for the golf outing, and I see him in Florida. We see each other all the time, and I just adore it. And there's no doubt in my mind that two people just don't meet and are that close, for 50 years now, right? 50 years we've been that close. So I know that there is something deeper than, we just, like the shoes we were wearing, right? I knew that there was something more, about that, and I believe the same, soul families, I believe we're part of a soul family. Yes. I'll give you a great story with Thomas John. Sally and I just saw a notice that Thomas John was going to speak at the Infinity Center, which is one town away, right? One town away in Highland Park. And on the way was a pretty good barbecue joint. So I figured, 2 for 1. We'll stop, have some barbecue, go see Thomas John. Wasn't on the list, the whole thing. Walked in and sat up front, which is something that's completely contrary to what I've done all my life, sit up front and sat up front, Sally and I, on the right side of the room, 150 people, maybe 100. He spent the entire time on the left side, but he was like a Gatling gun. He talked to this woman who, he said, okay, who here lost the maid of honor at their wedding? And a woman raised her hand. She goes, okay. Talked about going to Vegas together. Talked about you still have her dress. I mean, it was, talked about the drug addiction. Talked about the overdose. Yeah. I mean, just amazing. And so we're sitting there in awe. And then Thomas just keeps looking over to his right, which is on the other side of the room from us, and saying, there's these spirits that are showing up, all from one family. And he laughed and said, frankly, they kind of scare me. And my wife elbowed me and she said, it's your family, right? And I said, I kind of think so. And she's worried we're going to get tossed out because of my hooligan family, And he said, okay. So the leader of the group is a guy named Jerry, but his name isn't Gerald. It's a different variation. And she said, and there's a Billy, Pat, and there's a guy named Bobby who took his life in the 70s. And I raised my hand. He goes, what was your brother's name? I said, Jeremiah. He said, okay. And you lost a son? I said, yeah. He said, your son is behind your sister Pat, throwing bunny ears behind her ear. Would that be something? I said, yeah, that would be something. He named all, 5 members of my family, by name. Then he said to me, who's Sarah? And I pointed to my wife. He said, no. 100 years old, Sarah. I said, well, that's Sally's grandmother, Sarah. It was named after her. Sarah was a nickname, or Sally's nickname for Sarah. He said, yeah, okay. She's not saying much, but she's always around your wife. She should know that. How do you answer that one? How do you tell me that somebody's going to pick out 5 soul family names? Then he said to me, Chris is he said, your family's all backing up now, but Chris is staying here, but he's bringing a young man forward, and his name's Jordan, and his mom's name is Melissa. Who here is a Melissa that lost a Jordan? And a woman raised her hand. She goes, is your son shy? And she said, yeah, he was, lost him a year ago. He was very shy. She goes, because Chris is bringing him forward. He's got his arm around him, bringing him forward, saying, talk to your mom. Yeah. And they had this conversation, and Thomas John said, hey, Melissa, thank Chris, because Jordan would have never come through if Chris didn't bring him forward. But that's who Chris was. That's the kind of kid Chris was. And is, by the way.
Thomas John is somebody I would love to get on the show. I follow him on Facebook, and I watched his when he did the taxi cab thing.
I hated the taxi cab. I hated
He did too.
He's such a phenomenal talent. He's maybe the best I've encountered, and I've had some amazing. Tony Russo in New York she's just amazing. Andrew Anderson's great. Sherry Jewell's phenomenal. I've had some amazing mediums. And I've just been blessed to have, and I've had a couple okay ones, and it's like anything else, you just don't go back, right?
TV never gives it the right light.
Don't cheapen this. You know what I mean? Yeah. This guy's got a gift among gifts,
But even still, through all that, even in that show, I really drew to light how incredible he is.
He is
really.
He's unbelievable. I saw him on a one-on-one. And Sally and I split half hour each, and individually. And he said to me, he talked about Chris, and then he said, why is Marv Levy coming through? He said, does it have something to do with Chicago? I said, actually, Marv Levy was from Chicago, but he was originally from Canada, but he was the coach of the Buffalo Bills during the Super Bowl years. And on Christopher's grave has the Bills logo. There's a Celtic cross on one side, the Bills logo on the other. And he looked at me and he said, "Are you holding his medal in your left hand?" And I opened my left hand, and it was his medal from when he was baptized. This guy's amazing. I mean, he's got an amazing gift. I would do anything you could to nail him down because he's that good.
I want to. I've been afraid because he's big. I mean, he's big. It's incredible. I've been like, how do I contact Thomas John and try to get him on the show? I've had a lot of mediums, and I'd love to have him on. I know he's probably super busy and booked, and I can't believe he's not out there more because I've seen him do besides that show. I've done research. I watch his live streams. It's amazing. He's amazing.
He's amazing. I'll tell you something cool. I see on my birthday, I always see a medium, right? And Tony Russo out of New York is just flat out amazing. We did it at the grave this year, and it was just flat out unbelievable. But I'll tell you a cool story. My sister Marcia, I was out there a couple of weeks before she transitioned. She lived in Naples, Florida, and she was a real source of love for me growing up. We had 10 kids. Dad worked 16 hours, and Mom was beat. Great people. And Marcia was a real source of love. She taught high school. She raised her kids. Bad divorce from a deadbeat dad, right? And never liked the guy. And she just did amazing things. Went on to do, got her MBA from Wharton, and I loved Marcia dearly. And she was Christopher's godmother and real source of joy. So I was out there. She was dying of cancer. This vivid, amazing woman, and just being struck down with cancer. And so. She said to me, I was with her the week before she transitioned, and she said, "Honey, you gave me the greatest gift. I read your book, and I'm not afraid to die." She transitioned, a week later on February 6th, and on my birthday, the following year, January 9th, I went out and I saw Jill Nicole, a medium in the western suburbs, and I like fresh mediums. I like getting somebody who doesn't have the story. And she said to me, your son's here. He's beautiful. He looks like Brad Pitt. And he said, there's a woman here, too, who's got the title of mother, sister, aunt. I said, well, that's my sister Marcia. Wearing glasses, beautiful. I said, yeah, that's her. She said to tell you, honey, thanks for the greatest gift. It's like, come on, dude. Where are you going with this one? Chris told me before she transitioned, he said, look, Dad, I promise the minute Marcia crosses, I'll be there. You don't have to worry about that. So after she transitioned, and I had a medium call me the day she transitioned. She had no idea. Describe the restaurant, name the restaurant we were having the reception in. This was all planning that day. Yeah. Talked about a collage that my wife put together, including a picture with Marcia and Chris, where Christopher was wearing Tommy Bahama black shirt of mine, and she said, Tommy, Marcia loves the shirt or Christopher loves the shirt that he's wearing next to his Aunt Marcia, the black one. And he said to me, Dad, when she transitioned, he said, we were all here. He said, Bobby, Jerry, Billy, Pat, we were all here when she transitioned. He said, but she joined us and then she had to go somewhere, like a spa. And when she came back, she was younger than even when I was a kid. Oh. And it took me a while to figure that out, Jason. What happened was she died of cancer.
Right.
And her body, the cancer stayed with the body, but the trauma transitioned with her soul. So she had to go somewhere. And what a perfect term. What woman doesn't like going to a spa, right? Like a spa. So we go somewhere to shed that when we cross. I never thought, I'm not that smart, man. I never thought that out. So when you want to say, gee, maybe he's, figment of his imagination, go figure that one out.
Yeah. Yeah. We've talked about ways to connect in that. I also think I've told people on this show, you really are having trouble connect. When you go to lay down at night, ask your loved one to come through to you. I've had another one that hurts me during the holiday season, and my mom is her mother was born. My mom was born on her birthday, and my grandmother. I mean, we used to have big family get-togethers. We don't do this anymore, and it kind of breaks my heart, But it was my grandmother and her sister would go back and forth each holiday. One year to be there. So my grandmother and her sister married brothers. So we were at one point a really close family, and we're not anymore. And it kind of kills me. They used to do it for my great grandmother, who lived 102. But my grandmother had Alzheimer's, and it was really tough to watch her. I was there not long before she passed away, watch her breathing her last breaths, pretty much close to it. And me and my mom worried, what is she going to be like on the other side? If you have Alzheimer's, are they confused? My mom's a Buddhist. We wondered. And my grandmother, one day in my work, came to me. I was in a bathroom steaming some clothes. I work retail, and I know people have heard this story before, but I saw her, the mirror went black. Yeah. And I saw this candlelight glow in it, and her face appeared. And this is the day of her wake. I was going to leave work and go to her wake. And I came out onto the floor to tell her, I got to take a break. I was trying to hold my emotions in. Before I could get a word out, the associates on my floor, especially one who was very skeptical of me and my paranormal stuff, was the first one to say, Jason, something really weird happened. The front door was closed, but there was this rush of wind through the store, and I felt it go through me. And this is at the same time I saw my grandmother. So she's done things to show me she's all right. And then not long before, when it comes to the dreams, her sister had passed away as well. Not long right before the start of COVID, I had this dream where I was you're in a back room of a party, an exclusive party, and there's these curtains. I could hear a party going on the other side of the curtains, but my grandmother and my aunt were there, and it really, when my aunt passed away, it just reopened that wound of my grandmother being gone, and I think about them both during the holidays, and they just sat me down on the couch and put their heads on my shoulder, and I could feel them hug me. I could feel them there. I mean, it was just so real, and that's why I tell people they will come to you in dreams, and it is real.
Yeah,
you can ask for it.
Don't doubt it. It's funny.
I think they were trying to tell me I'm going to go through. It's going to be some tough times. And they're there for me is what I felt like the messages. I was a little worried about it until recently. Another medium said that's they're just there for you. That's all it is. It's nothing to be scared of. Because I was a little bit scared of it too.
They're not trying to scare you. They're trying to. They'll be there when like Buddha says, right? But it's funny you mentioned it because my father's brother married my mother's sister. They grew up next to each other.
Oh, same kind of family then.
Exact. And so my aunt was killed in a car accident.
Oh.
And that's when my parents took in the 5 kids. That were closer than close. I mean, same last name, same blood. So that's why that closeness of that family was there. And I saw Andrew Anderson the first time I saw him. He said, and this is before Marcia transitioned. This is in 2016. He said, "How many siblings you have left?" And I said, 5. And he said, "No, you've got 1." I said, "No, I know my family, bro.
Right.
You're wrong. I've got 5." He said, "No, your son's telling me you got 1." And I stopped and said, "Well, of the actual siblings, yeah, I got 1."
Technicality.
So don't argue with a dead person. You know what I mean?
But yeah, I mean, it's unusual. People, when I try to explain to them like that family, and they're like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "It's nothing weird."
Yeah.
Two sisters married 2 brothers.
These aren't Arkansas. This isn't Arkansas. This is
yeah. But as I get close to holidays, I think of my grandmother, who was, you don't say you have favorite relatives or anything like that, but she was my favorite grandmother and my favorite relative. I mean, I miss my grandmother so much. That was like the first person that made me really want to try to connect to the spirit world when she passed.
Marcia was my favorite sister. Marcia was my favorite sister. And so she has visited me twice in dreams. She's come through with a bunch of mediums. The only person that really comes through is Chris, and that's kind of fine with me. I'd love to expand it, but I don't need that. And, you talk about hugging, and from the very beginning, I feel Chris hug me. I can I can feel him. I can smell him. Smells like a teen, like a Foot Locker team, smells like a team. I can feel him. I can sense him. It's only twice during meditation I've actually been able to see him. That's something I'm working on, and he said to me, maybe it's not going to happen, but you kind of get what you get and you don't get upset. I mean, I'm given this amazing gift. And that's another thing, that I've given this amazing gift that I can't hoard, right? Why am I on the, 2.5 hours after a long day talking to you? Because I'm supposed to give this away to keep it. Yeah. Now, I'm not going to risk blowing this, right? I got this $1 million gift of connecting with my kid. And all I got to do is be of service, and the party's going to keep going for me.
Because you want other people to experience this, to realize this. I mean, I've watched so many people that I know have lost loved ones suffer, with the loss. And some do try to connect, and even still, they doubt themselves. Is it real? And this is why I feel it's important for you, and what you do is to let them know it is real. Keep going. Yeah. It's there. They're with you. You can make this connection.
But you got to take your responsibility. You got to research. You got to look at, if somebody doesn't understand past lives regression, you probably got a computer. Type in past lives regression and start reading, start researching. And that's exactly what I was doing this morning. And it took me back to an author that I stumbled on in 2016. And so there's a bunch of data out there. We're not the first people going through this. You and I are not. This isn't groundbreaking stuff.
No.
It's only groundbreaking stuff because we haven't encountered it. So when I want to know something more about past lives regression, I go online and I start reading, and some of it makes sense. There's a bunch of books out there. I love both books, and I can say it with all humility, because the truth of the matter is, I was just a messenger, right? I'm just following the breadcrumbs. So I think both of these are some of the best books on the subject of what we're talking about. But there's a lot of good ones. Bob Olson did a great one. Bridging Both Realms by John Holland was fabulous. There's a bunch of good books. And there's some that, if it doesn't work for me, I just, throw it out. There's some books that they're either a little too wacky. Some are a little too dry. Mary Neal wrote about, going to heaven and dying. and drowning, which I was so grateful for her description of drowning because it brought me peace, because I was always afraid of what were those last minutes like, you know?
Yeah.
And he's told me that it was like falling over in a crowd. And then he was on the other side. That's what he told me. You know, they were half in the bag and they were cold and they were, and the water. And Mary K. Neal said that it was deliriously happy when she was drowning, that it was a wonderful way to go. And that just brought me, you know, an amazing amount of peace, you know, but I wouldn't have known that unless I picked up her book. You know, I do a lot of Audible and I listen to books.
Yeah.
And and I remember I was actually driving out to see to the place that Christopher had drowned. And when I was listening to that book, you know, was that a coincidence? I don't think so. And it made me so happy to know that this isn't a fairy tale. My son's death was not traumatic. It was for me, you know, but for him it was falling over in a crowd, he said.
Well, you know, we've had guests on here about near-death experiences, and that's one of the insights of it I feel is like the most important for people to learn from their experiences that I've seen repeated over and over again is somebody, I mean, I'm going to forget names because it's late at night, that I remember one guest, you know, talking about getting into a car wreck, but he didn't feel the pain. He didn't feel, he was taken out of his body right before it, which is incredible to me. I mean, like the girl that was my neighbor, when she passed away, she died in a horrible car wreck. And it haunted me. I actually saw her spirit when I was a little kid in a Ford I was in. And it scared me, but it was like her trying to let me know, stop having the nightmares, you know, because I was having nightmares of her car wreck. And, you know, my mom had told me she died in a car wreck. Didn't tell me in details, but I would have these horrible nightmares of the car on fire and stuff like that. Like, it's my little 5-year-old brain trying to concept death, you know.
Right.
And, you know, it's my first, you know, realize, like, I can die, you know. And what did she go through? Did she suffer? And I know that for parents that lose a child in any way like that in an accident, that's like, did they suffer, you know? Or people even lose children to monsters. You know, they were killed by horrible, evil people. You know,
like The Shack. That was the novel.
Exactly.
The Shack.
That's The Shack. You know, that you hope there's somebody there with them in that time, and you hear these near-death experiences, and there are angels, there are people, spirits, loved ones there with them, that they don't suffer like that.
That their soul is pulled before the impact.
Yeah, and I think that's so important people to hear.
There's a video where there was an airplane that during the crash, they would see souls leaving the plane, literally see shadows of souls leaving the plane, because it was people leaving before the impact. You know, that you know, benevolent God's taking them out of their body. Their body's going to get the trauma. They're just not going to feel it because their soul's gone. You know, we're just a meat suit, man. You know, do you really think this is it? You know, we're just you know, I thought that I was really onto something. That you know, I thought that knowing that we were spiritual people having a physical existence was something that I dug up with all my wonderful research, until I found out that there was a priest from the early in the 20th century who said, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Pierre Desjardins was a philosopher and Jesuit priest who trained as a paleontologist. He was a scientist and a teacher, and he died in 1955, right? And he split with the church in 1920 because they thought his teachings were too radical. So here I'm thinking this new age, right? Hey, bro, this is only new for us. This is nothing new age, right? You know, who was it said that goodbyes are for those who love with their eyes. For those who love with their heart and soul, there's no such thing as separation. That was Rumi, and he was the 16th century. You know, so this is nothing new.
No.
Just because we're stumbling on it now in our own arrogance, think that this is new age. I think it cracks me up when people call this new age.
I hate that term, to be honest.
I do too.
I've always hated that term, new age. And, you know, it's like I said, this has been with us from the beginning of time. I think our ancestors knew it way better than we did, you know, understood it way better. We were so distracted.
I think we're remembering.
Now.
I think as a people, we're remembering. I think the veil is really thinning. I think this is a really, special time that the veil is thinning, and I think people have to find those thin places, I went to Sedona and was disappointed. I went to Lilydale, which is the oldest spiritual community in the country, and got knocked off my socks, man. It was amazing, right? So, it's not one size fits all, people are going to, I feel it at Imbalance Ranch. I know that Christopher's spirit moves freely through there. They've got a fire pit dedicated to him. They got, we donate there also, but it's not because of money. It's because of the impact that he made. That they've got a ranch called, they got a ranch called, the McQuillen Bunkhouse, and the bottom line is, people's spirit do connect to certain places, and get off your butt and find those places.
I love how you referred to it several times tonight, where the veil's thin, and sometimes that place is specific to a person, and to their experience. It's not just like Lilydale, where it's probably thin for everything to come through, but it can be a specific place, that the room you're in now, This
is thin for me. I know he's here. I feel him here. We connect here.
Exactly.
I do a ton of Marcia's house, his aunt Marcia's house. I go there for 2 months in the winter, and I feel both of them. I'll tell you a funny story. There's a
Well, we actually
sure.
We got to go to last commercial break, so we'll come back to that when we come back.
No worries.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but we are on the right on the commercial break.
I'm okay. I'm not that sensitive.
When we come back, we'll continue with that, and the phone lines are still open, guys. Zach had great questions. Don't let that intimidate you. Just talk about to us. Join the conversation. Share your experiences, or ask your questions of Joe tonight. But we will be right back after the short commercial break.
Intercepted a transmission of unknown origin.
Transmission? Out here?
SOS.
Human.
Unknown.
Alien. Certificate X. Exclusive engagement at the Odeon Leicester Square. Now.
Any systematized transmission indicating a possible intelligent origin must be investigated.
I don't want to hear none of this.
In space, no one can hear you scream.
If you are interested in discovering the truth about the paranormal and want to hear from leading researchers in the field, join Justin Brown on his 3 weekly shows named My Paranormal Soapbox, Necromancer Live Show, and the Supernatural Symposium, live on Facebook, YouTube, and InterfaceDeath.net.
This is an APAC studio presentation.
Hi, I'm Barry, owner-operator of Barry's Barometer Barn. Lately, I bet you've been lying awake at night asking yourself, how many barometers do I really need? Well, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we think you need more than one. Otherwise, we're gonna go out of business. Remember, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we don't know the meaning of high-pressure sales. Come on, folks, buy another barometer. I'm trying to put my kids through college, I've got a family to support, and a secret mistress who isn't cheap.
Visit Barry's Barometer Barn, 000 Storm Drive. Come on, folks, buy a barometer. I'm Barry's older brother, Larry, and every time one of you people walk past the store without coming in, Barry beats me.
This has been a presentation from Tim Morgan's APAC Studio. For more almost professional amateur comic studio content, visit the APAC YouTube channel. Search APAC 2002. That's APAC 2002 on YouTube.
When
Alex Gardner is asleep. He has an extraordinary gift. The government wants it. The scientists want it. But to keep it may cost him his life. It might be better if Alex didn't sleep at all. But he cannot resist entering the dreamscape. Can you? See Dreamscape in the West End and all over London now. Certificate 15. It takes an extraordinary adventurer to enter the dreamscape.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Heat 'em up.
Do, re, be gone.
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419 or by Skype caller ID OOJBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight's guest, we've been talking with Joe McQuillen, author of My Search for Christopher on the Other Side, and we're not done yet, Pop. My Lessons from the Other Side. He lost his son, Chris, January 3rd of 2016, and he's been a searcher of truth of how to connect with his son, and he does on a consistent basis. And I want that for everyone who's lost a loved one, to have the same ability as Joe, and I know Joe wants that for you too. Because I know during the holiday seasons, this is when it's the toughest. This is when we think about it. Like, I especially when I see the Christmas trees and the lights, I miss the times I had with my grandmother, where she'd have a whole family over, and my aunt would have them over, and everybody come together. I miss those times, and I think about them. I miss my pets I lost near the holiday season. You know, it's hard. You know, maybe it's because we do feel them with us. We're not recognizing it as part of it. I don't know. But tonight, I want you to call in. We still got a half an hour left of the show. Let me make sure the phone line is open. It is open. You can call in, join the conversation, ask your questions of Joe. Maybe we can help you learn how to connect with your loved ones on the other side. Or maybe you do and want to share your experience of how you do connect with your loved ones. All things are available for you to talk about on this show when it comes to this topic. Let's go ahead and get back to our guest. All right, Joe. Sorry for stopping you on that. You had a experience or story you wanted to share with us on.
Last February, March, I was down in Florida and staying at my sister's house, and and it was funny because I had a lot of the data and background from the second book, but it just wasn't coming together. And I went down there, and all of a sudden, it just started flowing. And I just knew that Chris's energy, Marsha's energy, just helped me put it all together. Well, I helped him put it all together, to be honest with you. But one of the things I'd called a medium pal, Sherry Jewell, who's a friend of mine, and we're friends. So I was just talking to her, and she said, are you at your sister's house? And I said, yeah, I am. And she said, wow. And she said, I was trying to bring Chris through, but I couldn't get through, but your sister's here. And she said that she's glad you're in her house and that her house is your house. And then she said, Marcia wants to know where you put her keys. Now, Sally and I went to spend a week up in Siesta Key, so I had taken the keys and just put them under the mat. There's a guy that comes and keeps an eye on the house for the kids. My niece and nephew own it. And so I went and looked under the mat, and the keys weren't there. And she said, Marcia said, don't get locked out. And I said, okay. And I went over, there was a hook on the wall where the master keys are. So I took those off, put them in my pants pocket, and I'm just on a cell phone with a headset. And I started to walk back out on the lanai because I had a cigar going. And she said, Marcia said, put the keys back on the hook. You know what she said? So I put the keys back on the hook. We weren't on Zoom, bro. You know what I mean? I was on the phone. And she had also said, did you bring back a shell from Siesta Key? Sally, my wife, loves to walk up and down beaches and pick out perfect shells and collect some. I brought one shell back. And she said, did you put it on the painting with the cardinal? And I'd sent Marcia a painting with a cardinal, a couple years before, and it's hanging on a wall, and I had put the shell on top. Nobody knew that. Not because we're hiding anything from somebody. It was just validation that Marcia was there. And it just, I feel so at peace when I'm in an environment that's, I'm sharing with people that I love, whether on this side or the other,
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned a cardinal. For my wife, her grandmother was like the patriarch of her family. I loved her grandmother, Mimi. And her thing with her grandmother was when she was alive, when Susan was my wife, Susan was a little girl, her grandmother got a kick how Susan would call cardinals red jays.
Yeah.
And that was like their bird together.
Yeah.
And the day we found, we got the call her grandmother had passed, there was this red jay cardinal out in the yard just sitting there on the fence. And my wife, didn't question it. She knows that was Mimi. And then I had a cardinal fighting a mantis situation I've told on this show when my son has sensory disorder. And we were in Chicago, and here I'm on this field trip with my son, like, I need my wife, and she's not there. And he was having a meltdown at the train station. And sure enough, my son loves monster fights and all that stuff, especially at that age. There was this, he goes, Dad, he goes, look at this. It took his anxiety away. It was this cardinal fighting this mantis on other train tracks. And I even said to myself, I go, thank you, Mimi.
Yeah.
Because it took away all the anxiety. I believe that the spirits use animals to even get our attention.
Christopher sends me cardinals, and he sends Sally hawks. I have a cardinal. I was trying to show you on my arm here. I have a cardinal tattoo on my forearm. With his initials on it, and sometimes in miraculous ways. There's times I'll just say, "Hey, Chris, I really could, I could use a sign." I'll tell you another cool story. I was feeling a little blue, and I just published a story on helping parents heal. I'm a big fan of helping parents heal, and you can only be part of that group. They have to accept you, and it's only if you've lost a kid. And they're wonderful. Elizabeth Bosson put it together, and John Arlen. I mean, they're just wonderful people. And I've done presentations with them, and I adore the whole group. And I had published, and it was a chapter in the upcoming book. It was called Empty Boots. And basically what it was I was trying to prep parents for those emotional landmines that are just going to knock you out of your boots. And you just got to roll with it. It's like, you can't fight the tide. You just let it come in, go over you, and go back out, and then get on with your day. So I had posted this, and basically what had happened, I walked in a couple of days before, and I had seen 2 Timberland boots, open and on the floor. And I thought, oh, great, Chris is home. And I took a step and then realized, nah, not Chris isn't home, Chris is home, but not on this side. And, there were Williams boots. But I described that story just to let people know that's normal. Don't hold it back. Walk out on the deck, cry, have your moment, do whatever you got to do. Go back to bed if you got to do whatever you got to do. So that day I was driving during COVID, sneak out and play golf with my youngest. The golf course wasn't open, but we'd sneak out on the back 9 and play. Certain things don't change, and Jason. So I was driving up and I got a call from the same Sherry Jewell, and she said, "Hey, I just gave your name to a woman who lost a kid. I should have asked you first." I said, "You never have to ask me. Give my number out to anybody who needs to talk." And she said, "By the way, Chris is here right now." She said, "Did he used to drink whiskey sours?" And we were on a cruise one time and he was drinking whiskey sours and I was teasing him and messing with him. And I go, "Yeah, I did." She goes, "Were you asking for a sign?" And I said, "Yeah, I was feeling kind of blue." She said, "Okay, because he's sending me a pair of Timberland boots and said you'd understand what this meant." Now, Sherry isn't privy to this website. Sherry wasn't, she's never lost a kid. But it was just, and I just, all of a sudden, I just felt all the weight of the world come off my shoulders because I knew my kids. So it wasn't just me and Will golfing that day. Me, Will, and his older brother, played 9 holes that day, and I just felt a lot lighter and more connected to my boy, So those are the signs they send us all the time. If you're aware, if you're awake.
That's the thing. That's why big part of my show, I've been doing this 6 years. It's just trying to open people's eyes to these signs that spirits are around us always. They interact with us in so many ways we don't realize. I'm a big fan. I've gotten a few people turned on to the show. There's a BBC version and there's a American version that just came out called Ghosts. And I'm not saying all spirits are ghosts, but it's a comedy. But it's an interesting.
Oh, I saw the advertisement. How is it? Is it pretty good?
I've been a fan of. First, I was a big fan of the British show because the guy who I want to get the guy who created it on. Simon Farnaby, if you say his name right, he created a British show, and they're a group of comedians that did a show called Horrible Histories.
Jason, is this a TV show that's on during the week now? Called
the new one is the American version is now, but the British version's been out for 3 years, and I highly recommend both. Actually, both are brilliant in their own.
At least
ways.
the American version, we can understand the English, Jason.
Yeah, I'm a Doctor Who fan, so I get the British stuff, I guess. But it's interesting watching how I really would love to get the original creator on to pick his brain about what he thought or what influenced him on it, because they cover so many things that in my experiences that they just get into, like children seeing and talking to ghosts, and what are the spirits doing on the other side and how they're interacting with us. And I'm like, I love this. They do it in a comedic way, but there's serious heart, especially the British version has very, it's comedic, but it handles serious topics too in it, at the same time with how people, are on the other side. Now, this isn't these are ghosts stuck somewhere,
right? Right.
But it is an interesting take, and and to me, it's the way that it's being a comedy. It's a way of lightening up the situation and getting people to think about the afterlife. So I'm a big fan of it. Highly recommend it. But
I watched 2 of them, and I had a hard time getting into it. I might have to give it another chance.
The American or the British?
The American.
I'm a big fan of the British one, but I love the American one too. And it's this time of year, I think everybody needs a good laugh, but I also like it that it gets people thinking about, well, what is it like, for these spirits while they're here with us. What it is there's one of the characters can see them and talk to them. And that's what these mediums do, like Thomas John, are able to see and talk and relay this information, and to me, having a comedy like why that's been so successful in Britain for the original show, and I think the American one's doing really well, is that people, like you said, are awakening to this, are more open to this. I think a number of years ago, both shows wouldn't have been so successful, but people are awakening to it.
I still refer to the people that just don't buy into it as muggles, like from Harry Potter, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And you got to, I'm okay with that. If somebody, this isn't for them,
Yeah.
I did an interview with a pretty famous shock jock here in Chicago, and I
God,
like the
was it
guy.
Man Cow?
Yeah.
Oh God.
All right. So believe it or not, Mancow was pretty cool. He said to me,
Yeah.
he said, "Look, I don't buy this. I don't want to, I know you've been through this trauma." I go, "Mancow, I'm a tough enough guy. You're not going to hurt my feelings, But I got to tell you, when the show stopped, I hung around for 20 minutes because he wanted to talk about it. And I said, "Look, I don't know which Mancow was the right guy. The guy that's curious about this, or the guy that's telling me that he doesn't buy into it. But I will tell you, everything that I've told you, Mancow, just put it in a file cabinet. Because at some point, in your mind, at some point when you need it, you'll have access to that. And it might not be today and it might not be next year. But at some point in time, you'll lose somebody that you'll want to connect with, and you'll remember, the steps, how to get there. And if you forget, give me a call, but it was the same thing. Mancow wasn't buying into it, but he sure seemed when the camera stopped rolling to have a little more interest than he did. But he actually, for all the knock on the guy, he actually did a very sensitive interview with me, and I enjoyed his company.
Oh yeah, I've listened to Man. I was sad when 890 booted him, but WLS,
Well, I don't think he was.
I disagree with him.
I don't think he was an easy guy to get along with, to be honest with you.
No, I've called into the Man Cow show many, many years ago, and we had a little disagreement. But I've always still, I disagree with a lot of his opinions on stuff, but I still love listening to him.
Right.
But he's a spiritual guy, though. I mean, he's very, I think over the years become more spiritual.
Well, almost a little, I think, heavy Christian. Too locked down. You gotta, I'm a big fan of the Bible. But let's face it, it's a book that's written by humans, inspired maybe by the divine, but we tend to screw things up as humans.
Exactly.
We could screw up a 2-car funeral. You know what I mean?
And, when people say it's the word of God, I do believe it is the word of God, but it's the messengers have to write it down,
right.
And we're infallible.
And was it Pope Gregory decided what went in?
Exactly.
Well, since Pope Gregory wasn't divinity, they might have excluded a few things that probably were a little pertinent,
Oh yeah, the what do you got? The Book of Thomas, the Book of Mary Magdalene.
Right.
Yeah, the
Judas,
Gnostic text,
the
Judas,
Gnostic Gospels.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much.
Check it out. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, just open your mind and check it out. But you can't say this is it. Really.
I know. And if anything, what does Jesus Christ teach you? He teaches you to seek the truth. He doesn't teach you to be a blind follower. He didn't tell us this is how it is. He gave his apostles parables. Because what are parables? Like a Buddhist coup. They're to get your mind to unlock and solve it on your own.
Well, there's
That's
a
the
whole
only way you
school
learn.
of thought that he, all of a sudden you see him running around in the desert as a carpenter with his dad. Now let's understand something.
Yes, I know.
We say he was a carpenter. They were in the desert. What are you carpentering? There's no trees, right? So actually what they did is they screwed up. It was a Greek term called tekton, which means tradesman. So he was probably a stone cutter. So he was helping his dad, running around, doing all this stuff. Boom, he's gone. And he comes back for the wedding feast of Cana, right? Where's he gone? So there's a school of thought, because he's named in Eastern sources, that he went to India to study. That's why he came back with this laid-back religion that everybody else just didn't get, right? Who is it? Craig McMahon, who I love, the filmmaker. He told me one time, he said, Jesus is like a surfer dude. I was like, I dig that. That's not, that's not being irreverent. It's just the opposite. So, I mean, my favorite part of this man God thing was he walks into the temple. And they got it dealing like a currency exchange and a bingo parlor. Yes. He goes crazy, tips over tables, starts beating the heck out of people. I love that. Right?
Me too.
Because that's the man side of him that said, "I'm not going to tolerate this." Where
we need that now.
Right. I love that stuff.
Me too.
God, and I'm cool with Jesus. I think he's a lot of good teachings, and of all the button down religions, I don't think he'd dig a lot of what
Me neither.
they teach, right? So
Me neither.
let's all lighten up and love each other a little bit.
Yes.
And maybe we'll be in a better place, you know?
Yeah, I mean, he sat down with, prostitutes and thieves and
Bill
didn't
collectors
judge them.
and fishermen, right?
Yes.
That's who he hung, what? And I'm a blue collar guy. I love that dude. You know what I mean? He's my kind of guy.
I think it was he had if you look at it, was a Joseph of Arimathea, was
Yes.
a tin mine, had tin mines throughout like India, and that there's a good possibility that he traveled through his uncle to these places as well as some of the
And that was
researchers
the tomb that Christ was buried in was Joseph of Arimathea's tomb.
Arimathea's, yeah.
So that's exactly. So the bottom line is let's expand the knowledge. Let's not limit it, right?
Exactly.
I'm a big fan of the guy. And he said, and he said he promised heaven to dismiss the good thief. It was the only person that he promised heaven to during the entire New Scripture. And he said, "Today you will be with me, with my Father in paradise." It's the only guy, was the guy that was crucified with him.
But next to him,
my kind of guy.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, if you look at it, if you really study the New Testament, and like I said, it's imperfect. I know that offends people, but it's man's influence on it and his editing. But if you can get down to the brass tacks, what he's saying is telling each other, to love each other. There's more to this world. There's more to this world.
Another thing that he said that I like, and it's when we go back to people saying, like, what you're doing is BS. What you're doing is, anti-Christian or whatever.
Yeah.
And what did Christ say? He said, when you go to a town and they don't want to hear your message, that you wipe the dust from your sandals. In other words, shake it off, man. Not everybody's going to buy in. God bless. Move on. Tell your story walking. If this isn't for you, try Netflix, whatever it is,
Netflix and chill over there, man.
Yeah, go chill.
It's like you don't get the reference of Netflix and chill. I'm gonna hear that, but no, but you can only know your truths. You can only speak to what you know, and people either take it or leave it.
And it's what I know. Here's the thing: I'm not talking. There's very little that I know in this world, but I do know that my son's on the other side, and I connect with him. Right? I mean, it went from belief to a knowing. What was the line that said?
That's a gift.
Tagore says, "Faith is the bird that feels the light and sings when the dawn is still dark." You got to go first, man. You got to take a chance.
I see so many people say they have faith, and I've always been said, "Oh, I'm jealous of people who have faith," but I have my faith in what I know, what I've seen. I know there's an afterlife. I know I've connected with my loved ones on the other side, and I want other people to feel that, know that, but I can't do it for them.
And I know that my son is with the source. Now you put a name on it. God, Yahweh, great Holy Spirit, great Spirit, whatever. Put a name on it, but it's the source that started all of this and that loves us like a father. I was blessed. I was raised by a very imperfect but a very loving father. I adored my dad. So it's easy to me to envision a loving father, right? And so, I know that my son is with my dad, but he's also with the source, with the big dad, with the big D, the capital D,
I didn't, this is the part, I told you I never wanted to have kids and all that stuff. Well, I think God, God has his own plans.
Yeah.
And I had all this resentment towards my biological father and all that stuff. And like, I didn't have that influence stuff from my stepdad, and my stepdad, we have issues and stuff, and it was never, it's hard for him, a stepfather, to connect with a son, like that. But I didn't really learn or really feel like I got closer to God until my first son, my 10-year-old now, was born.
Yeah.
That's when I really feel that connection. I mean, I had that connection when he saved me when I was 18 from what I feel is like a demonic force or entity that attacked me, but I really didn't learn that connection and what it is to have a father or be a father until I was one.
But what a great father you are.
And it taught me everything.
Right? What a source of love you are. What a shame if you didn't have these kids.
That's what I mean. I every day I pray to, I thank God for giving me the wonderful gift of being a father. But I can't imagine my life now without them.
I remember staying up nights before Sally had Christopher, thinking I was too selfish a guy to be a very good dad. I really
I
did.
had that.
I really worried about that. And the minute Christopher was born, it all melted away. And this is something I want all your listeners to get, is that, people are going to say, oh, this poor guy lost a kid. Don't feel sorry for me. I got to be Christopher's dad for 21 years on this side. The greatest job in the world. I got it. And I get to be his dad again when I transition over. So the truth of the matter is, I feel sorry for anybody else that didn't get to be his dad for 21 years. So you don't have to feel bad for me. I had the $1 million gift, and I'll get it again. And I still get to be his dad right now when we connect. It's not in the flesh, and it's not as good as it's going to be, but it's not too bad.
And that's why every night I've made a point to thank God, the source, that thank you. I was wrong. I was so wrong about not having kids. I mean, of course, I feel like, I started suffering anxiety after I had kids because of my worrywardness. But at the same time, I wouldn't know what real love was or what life's gift was without me. I became a pro-life person. I became, I became. It changed me, and I can't imagine the person I would be now. I don't want to know the person I would be without my kids. I really don't.
Christopher told me that, because I was concerned about a lot of things that I didn't know the answer to. And there's still a lot more that I don't know the answer to. That, how will we be when I cross? And he said, Dad, we'll always connect as father as son. Always. When you cross, it'll be as father and son. So don't worry about that. And I was like, okay, okay, I'm in, so, I think those are all that father energy is always going to be there, and I'm lucky to have it.
Now, I know you're there for parents. Before we got about 5 minutes left here, I want to make sure people have ways to connect with you. And what's the best way to get that
my
information?
email address is my first two initials, JB McQuillen, McQuillen @gmail. The books are on Amazon, both of them. I have a website that's under construction. I'll be back up tomorrow. It's joemcquillen.net. And, your interview will be on there once we get the link. And basically, send an email, send it back. I'll send you my phone number. This is what I'm supposed to do. I work for a living. I do a lot of stuff but this is what I'm supposed to do on this last lap. I'm rounding third, dude. I'm turning 65 in January.
Oh,
right?
You're young.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not going anywhere soon. But a good, and I'm a better guy at 65 than I ever was. So, one thing I will tell you is that when you see somebody on the other side who comes through, they come through as themselves in their prime. Christopher will always be 21. I think I'll be a 64-year-old guy because I think I'm my best version of myself right now. My sister Marcia is in her 40s. That's when she was raising her kids and a wonderful version of herself. So your grandmother is going to be a young, vibrant grandmother. You talked about your dogs. My other dog is already with him, and mediums have mentioned it. And my current dog, who's 14, laying by my office door right now, she doesn't have that much longer. And he said to me, don't worry, Dad. As soon as Cassidy crosses, I'll be there with her. She'll be with me until we see you again on the other side. Dogs are there, bro. If there's a question is whether if there's animals, if animals are in heaven, I ain't going. The Irish say that heaven's a place where your dog talks and your dad's always young.
I love that saying. I have a lot of Irish in me. It's getting late now. I lose my last thought here. I was going to have. Darn it! Oh my God. I do want to have you back on if you again,
of course,
especially to talk. You get into the past life thing. I'd love to really get into that because, again, it's something we've talked about quite a bit on the show. I've had my experiences, and like I said, people don't realize the connections we have with people, how deep they really go. And I think that it's incredible that you are sharing all this with everyone, and that you're a supportive person for so many people going through this. I mean, it's been a true honor to have you on this show tonight.
Well, it's been absolutely positively my pleasure to be here. You know, it's great because when you connect with somebody who's on the same wavelength, it makes it such an easy interview, and that's exactly what this was.
Hey, we're not too far from each other either. I'm in Michigan City, Indiana. If you want to come check out our quartz beaches here, you let me know.
Dude, all you got to do is ask. I'm in. Me, I'll grab a cigar and a Red Bull in my Jeep, and we'll go.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Joe. Like I said, it's been a true pleasure to have you on the show tonight. Check out his books. My Search for Christopher on the Other Side is the first one. His newer book, We're Not Done Yet, Pop, My Lessons from the Other Side. And if you have a friend, family member is lost some way, tell them about these books. Tell them about Joe. It might be a big help. I know that's the hardest scene when you try to talk. I fumble, and I feel horrible when I try to talk to somebody who's lost a loved one. I don't know what to say. Who does? There's nothing you can say to take away their pain or heart. All we can do is be there, give them a hug. But Joe, I think your books are a real big help to people.
Yeah, I think that's what Chris wants, and that's what I'm doing. I'm just following the breadcrumbs.
All right, guys, that's it for the show. It goes by quick, I know. Thank you to everybody who watched tonight. Thank you again to Russ, my grade school friend, for the $50 donation on Super Chat. Every donation helps. Check us out on Patreon. $2 a month does help pay the bills. We will be back next Sunday, same bad time, same bad channel, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. Central, with guest Mariel Ford Clark. She's the author of Where After? Where Do Our Loved Ones Go After They Die? Again, we're going to cover this during the holiday season. Like I said, I know this is a tough time for people, and I want to let you know your loved ones are there with you. That's what we've been talking about. All right, guys, have a great night. See you next Sunday. Have a great week.